we'll have like the 2-minute interlude. Hello, everyone. Welcome into an interview between Last Protagonist and Elden dorK. Thank you all so much for joining us. So, on yesterday's stream, we checked out the video about, I can't remember because I'm drawing a blank, but that's fine. Anyway, wanted to welcome everyone in early. So we have Astanex, Iman, Banoon, Levovit Lore, Elden Enthusiast. How's it all going, everybody? So, I have with myself tonight Elden dorK. If you wouldn't mind giving us a count off sound check so that way your audio can be balanced against mine. If the chat has anything to say about that, go ahead. And then after that, we'll have you introduce yourself and essentially begin things from there. So please take it away with an audio check, Mr. Elden dorK.
Hello, hello. Check 1 2 3.
All right.
I am Mr. Elden dorK.
It seems like it might be a little bit loud, but I can adjust that. How's that for you guys in the chat? And we do have that little bit of a stream delay, so hopefully we'll get some feedback. 10% louder than me? Okay, I can turn him down.
But you're gonna want that Elden dorK loud in your ear.
Banoon says you have an awesome voice. Scalweezy, nice to see you again. Okay, so sounds like we have a good audio check here. So without further ado, Mr. Elden dorK, would you mind giving us a little bit of a self-introduction?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much for inviting me on your stream. Like pretty spontaneously. I really appreciate that. Yeah, so I'm the guy behind the channel Elden dorK. You can also call me Scott if Elden dorK is weird or cumbersome. And yeah, I really like Soulsborne games and the lore about them, to the point where I had to, I don't know, I wanted to make some videos to share, I don't know, contribute to the online conversation.
All right, that's great. That actually transitions into my first question for you. It was, what about Elden Ring's lore has caught your interest and inspired you to make content?
Yeah, well, to be honest, the Elden Ring's lore caught my interest. Wow, sorry. You'll have to pardon me. My brain is getting going here. It's very early in the morning where I live, and so I've woken up. much earlier than usual, and that's not to complain. That's just to excuse myself if I stutter and ramble a bit.
Oh, you're fine. And yes,
Um,
for everybody wondering, he is essentially woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning to get ready for the interview. Well, he had to wake up earlier than that, but that's essentially his time for us now. So, yeah, you were saying what caught your interest with Elden Ring and why you wanted to make content for it?
yeah, well, so what caught my interest? I was pre-interested in it. I've been interested in Soulsborne games since Demon Souls North American release. Um, so I was already interested when I first played the game. And to make content for it, to be honest, I have like a bunch of abandoned scripts for Dark Souls lore on my computer. I've been about to make a Dark Souls lore video for like a decade or something. Um, so Elden Ring was the game that I finally got myself to do it.
So, with that Dark Souls lore video, is it per chance about Velka?
Yes, of course. Of course. Yeah, I mean, I imagine I'm not the first Dark Souls lore nerd who got their start by chasing their favorite Velka theory.
Certainly not the first. So, okay. You did kind of answer my next question a little bit. I was going to ask you, have you played any other FromSoft games or other Soulsborne titles? And if so, which ones? And amongst them, do you have a favorite?
Oh, yeah. So I
And be
started
careful what
with
you say. The chat's going to get you if you say the wrong thing.
yeah. I feel like you cultivate a Bloodborne crowd here. Um, but yeah, my first Soulsborne game was Demon Souls when it came out in like 2009. Uh, I like it wasn't on my radar at all. A friend told me I had to buy it, and I was like, "No, I'm busy." And then he said, "I'm gonna pick you up and take you to GameStop," and so I did. If you have time for a funny aside here, when I got Demon Souls at the GameStop store, um, the woman behind the desk, the cashier, uh, she said, "Oh, you like hard video games?" And I knew nothing about Demon Souls other than my friend insisted I had to get it. And I said, I don't know. No, why? Is is it hard?" And she's like, "Well, yeah, it has a reputation for being a really difficult game. Like you'll die in the tutorial." And then went, "Oh, well, I'm like really good at video games, so I'm sure I'll be fine." And
Well,
there was
did you die in the tutorial?
oh yeah, of course I did. Of course I did. And yeah. And actually like the first bit of me playing it, I was like, "Oh, this is a chore." But I couldn't admit to my friend that I couldn't beat the first boss. So I'm gonna beat the first boss and then I don't have to play it anymore. And by the time I beat the Phalanx demon, I I was hooked. I was just like, this is what power feels like. More.
Were you wearing
And
the Nintendo glove as you said that?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. With the duck hunt gun in
Oh
the
yeah.
holster. Yeah. Yeah, and then that was the first game I ever 100% completed, platinumed, whatever the term is.
Nice.
Not because I was like trophy hunting, but like I played it a lot. I I played it to the point that I had like all but one trophy, and then I was anyway.
That's interesting. Like
Yeah.
my first experience with Demon Souls wasn't really a proper experience with it. I was in my friend's dorm room and I was like, "Hey, what is this game?" And he's like, "Oh, this game's really hard." Our mutual friend tried playing it and he got so angry he threw the controllers, so I stopped letting him play the game anymore. I'm like, "Oh, so the game's just really hard for the sake of being hard?" I'm not really interested in that kind of thing. And then a year or so later, I had another friend talking about how much he loved Dark Souls 1 on the Facebooks. So that game was on my radar for a while, and then it took me a couple of years before like I had the time and the money to essentially spare enough to play Dark Souls 1, and then I played that game. I enjoyed it, but I put it down. I was like, man, I'm going to come back to this game and not let it beat me essentially. So it was many, many years later that I actually returned to Demon Souls, although I kind of got the bit of a cheapened experience with the PS5 remake. I've still not played the original, but funnily enough, I was aware of it pretty early on, but it was just kind of the word of mouth that really did it for me. So,
Yeah, well, that's how it goes.
yeah, skill issue. Well, I did go back, Levo. All right, so
Oh,
not to
and
let you off
favorite.
the hook, which of the Soulsborne games is your favorite if you have one?
Yeah. Um, it has become a tough pick for me between Dark Souls and Elden Ring. If you had asked me like maybe a year after Elden Ring's release, I would have said Dark Souls. Like easy, but um
So it was a bit of a
I
slow burn for you with Elden Ring? Like what put it up to
yeah.
the level of DS1 for you then?
Well, so for one, I had like when Elden Ring came out, I had like what, like 15 years or something of playing maybe not 15 years, but quite a few years of geeking out about Dark Souls. Um and I mean, there's a lot to Elden Ring. There's a lot of information to consume and a lot of game to play and I don't know, when I first played it, I thought a lot of the information was more explicit and kind of in your face than what I was used to in Dark Souls. But also, like, I felt like there was a lot of noise to signal. Like, there's just so much going on in Elden Ring. It's really hard to put everything together. And I felt like Dark Souls was a bit cleaner. Like it's more obscure, but like the story is simpler.
I definitely know
Like
what you
there's fewer
mean about
characters.
that. Like for me, I feel like I can understand the motivations generally for the characters in the Dark Souls universe, and as long as you're interested in one subject, it's fairly more self-contained, but not really because all the games have what we call spaghetti lore, where you begin with one noodle of lore and then it goes into a pile and then it's all an interconnected mess. But with Elden Ring, you have so many more characters with their own motivations, but you just don't really know what they are other than the shattering and getting power. But like, what about the before times? Like, what was America doing? So I think I know what you're saying with the whole noise ratio, essentially.
But yeah, over time, I've had more time to consume and process Elden Ring stuff, and I like it's grown on me. And if I just want to like play a game for fun, not to like geek out about like some specific lore thing I'm hyper fixating on at the moment. But if I just want to make a new character and do something, I mean, Elden Ring is pretty fun. Like I can, I want to make like an arcane mage type build, and then I can kind of plan out my routes of how I'm gonna get an OP weapon early to make the game easy because I'm not that good at games. I just yeah, I'm stubborn, and anyway. Um, but man, I love Dark Souls too. Dark Souls is super fun. I will. This might be controversial, but one thing that bothers me about Elden Ring is the bosses are really difficult. Like their branching action trees are so complicated that it stops feeling like a game I can learn versus compared to Dark Souls, where the boss battles feel like a game. Like if they will do this combination, like their branching action tree is like, okay, if they've done this, I now have an opportunity to hit them once or twice.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in Elden Ring, it's like, oh, they've done that. Now I can hit them once. Oh no, because I've closed the distance, their branching action tree is now switched to like a super fast attack that like now I'm gonna get hit anyway. And like Elden Ring, I feel is a lot about like waiting for the boss to do their stuff, and then you get a window to hit them like once. Whereas Dark Soul, like I have all of these like powerful tools in my kit. Like I just want to unleash and do some combos,
It's kind
not
of funny
just
you
one
brought
hit
that
at
up
a time.
unprompted because the past couple nights we've been reacting to a Shadow of the Erdtree critique where it's a lot of complaining about stuff like that, and it's just kind of been brought up a little bit more frequently on the past couple streams than in many of the other ones that I've done. So I appreciate that
Oh,
answer.
fascinating.
So now I have another very hard hitting question for you. So, first, I would ask you to brace in and prepare for chat to get you for this one because I'm trying to get my chat to get you. My question is, who is your FromSoft waifu or husbando?
Oh, I I don't think I have. I honestly have never once considered that question. I was not prepared. Oh goodness. Wow. I mean, because I'm unprepared, it's hard not to pick Rani, however you pronounce it.
Ronald.
Yeah, just like her quest when you're in the Eternal Cities and she's going like, "Oh, Blythe and EG, they give me more devotion than I deserve," and like where she's all humble, like I'm not worthy of this, but like you'll follow me anyway. That that shtick, that dialogue, just I'm like, yeah, I am choosing to follow you, and like you're a good person, and I don't know it.
It's all right. You don't
Yeah,
have to like truly justify your answer. It's just a fun one, I think. I don't really know if I have so much of a waifu slash husbando either. I was thinking like of all the NPCs in Elden Ring, I really do like Millicent's quest. Although Lucatiel is really good, but I don't know, I just don't get waifu vibes for her for me personally. I guess in many ways I would almost have to pick the imposter Yosefka. Or I guess if I
the
had to pick a
imposter
husbando,
Yosefka.
it would be the suspicious man from Bloodborne, the suspicious beggar who kills everybody and turns into the abhorrent beast.
Mm.
I guess I don't know if you've like read any of the Bloodborne interviews, but Miyazaki talks about how he really has a soft spot in his heart for characters like the imposter Yosefka and Sage Frake, and he feels like they never get any love. So he was hoping people are warmed up to Imposter Yosefka. So maybe I'm the one person that a character like
Ah.
Imposter Yosefka is meant for.
Oh
I'm
yeah, maybe I'm
sketchy.
just like maybe I'm too weak-minded or something. But once I learned about the switching voice actresses and stuff and Imposter Yosefka, I was like, first of all, that blew my mind. What cool storytelling. But then I was also like, but the first Yosefka was like nice and wanted to help people, and the second one's a psycho. And like, yeah, so I have, you know, I'm bitter and skeptical of Imposter Yosefka.
As I believe we should be, and that's why I like Bloodborne a lot. It always keeps you guessing and really on that whole sleuthing aspect of dealing with the supernatural, which is kind of fun to me. But yeah, before transitioning, I just wanted to appreciate everybody else's answers for their husbando and waifus in the chat. I really do like the kind of diversity between all of us so far. So,
Yeah, Melina also a good content. Grand Sax, epic.
okay.
I like that.
My next softball question for you is what would you like in a new FromSoft game aside from like what you've already seen in Night Rain and or Duskblood, or if those are not your cup of tea, go ahead and feel free to express that as well.
Oh, easy one. I want in a new FromSoft game, for them to make it a officially shared universe, shared timeline. All games are connected, 100%, forever, irrevocable canon.
All right, everybody.
Um,
I want to thank you all for joining me on this interview with Elden dorK. That'll conclude things here. We'll be going live again. All right, how dare you? How dare you, sir? I invite you on my
I,
stream and you bring that take here.
uh,
Where's the
yeah, I kid, I
pitchforks?
kid. Um, yeah, to be honest, I don't know. Like, I was still like I was still deep in like the like I feel like I haven't processed Elden Ring yet, and then they released that Night Rain trailer, and I was kind of like, No, like I can't factor more in yet. I'm still trying to figure out what all of the stuff in the DLC means, to, like how that affects various theories and stuff. Like I can't factor in the nameless king,
Or Lucatiel
and
now.
and also just to clarify on chat, like my video, if you have seen it, I made it after the DLC was released, but before Night Rain was announced, so I had no hint of other Soulsborne characters popping up in an Elden Ring uh, environment. That was not something that crossed my mind that I would see on on YouTube from the official Bandai Namco account. Um, and I also have always tried to avoid spoilers. Like I don't consume content about FromSoft games until I play them. So I know next to nothing about Night Raid other than the official trailer where I saw the Nameless King, and I was like, what does this mean?
Have you been watching
Uh,
any of the new like character trailers that they've been releasing or no?
I watched a couple of them, but I don't know. I haven't rewatched it and scrubbed for details. I just like was like, oh, cool. That guy has the what are they called? The Blackstone Golem, the giant axe.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
All
Or
right,
and
yeah, I
also
just
like
wanted to be on the same page. I didn't inadvertently spoil anything for you there.
oh yeah, no, all good.
So
Uh,
yeah, what are your current thoughts about Night Rain and or Duskblood?
um, yeah, like I don't have many like I'm really cautious about Night Rain because um like they did an interview with the director and the director insisted that this does not impact Elden Ring lore. So it could be that it's just meant to be, in a box, like this is just a for fun thing, like kind of like Fortnite. It doesn't really mean anything that like Marvel and Star Wars and whatever exist in the same universe as Fortnite. It's just
Mm-hmm.
for fun. Like like maybe that's what it is meant to be, or like maybe it is meant to mean some sort of shared universe thing. Like I don't want to try to even factor it in or form an opinion until I play it. And my general opinion is if it if it is a shared universe thing, I think there's a good chance of that like uh cheapening some of the lore. Like I do think the series, I have thought for the longest until the Night Rain trailer that these games are meant to be standalone, self-enclosed games. Um, and so I guess I'm a bit protective over the idea of like, oh, they're actually a shared universe. It, I don't know. That like I'm uneasy about that because that's not what I've thought for a long time. Um, and if it is just like, oh, none of this counts, it's just for fun, it doesn't affect the canon, so to speak, then then I don't know. Like I really like playing these games, but like the thing that keeps me playing them is like the lore stuff. So I don't know if I'll how much longevity a game that has no lore impact will have with me.
Yeah, that is one of
So,
my main concerns as well. And I think you could apply that in a certain sense to even like the other FromSoft games. It's like, what do you do with PvP once, the game's more than a year old and it all kind of dies down when the next game comes out? With Night Rain being more or less solely focused on multiplayer and like a single player mode, which seems maybe not as robust. We don't really know yet. I definitely have some concerns about its longevity as well. But yeah, as you were saying, there doesn't really seem to be a ton of connective tissue from what little we saw in the closed beta test, but I would not be surprised if there were a couple additional item descriptions to give a little bit of insight. But whether or not it's going to be a Shadow of the Erd Tree style insight where it doesn't matter at all or doesn't truly connect, or if it's just going to completely be essentially like a guide-in type game where it has no like actual tie-in whatsoever, I think will more or less come up to individual interpretation amongst the fans there.
Oh, Ben, how do I pronounce your name? Banuin?
Banoon,
Banoon?
I believe.
Banoon.
Yes.
Um, yeah, Banoon says that Miyazaki gave the director the lore Bible. I
It's
mean,
it's an I think that we've never had
okay.
confirmation about that.
I see. Well, yeah. Well, I'm keen to find out, but like I guess I'm the most cautious about this game releasing. Then I have the most caveats about being excited about Night Rain than I've had before about FromSoft releases.
I do think that's
But
kind
I'm
of
still
funny
excited.
because a moment ago you're saying like your biggest wish is that they were all interconnected, and now that it may be happening, you're like, oh no, did I really want that? Did the finger on the monkey paw just curl, or what's going on here?
Well, to be honest, I was being facetious. I I have really been on in the camp of like they are not connected. There's just parallels. Like there's repeating themes across the games. Um, that's yeah, I like that. Like I planted myself in that camp many years ago during Discord debates and someone or else's lore YouTube channel or Discord channel. Um, yeah, I don't know. It, that's the camp that I've liked being in. But if Night Rain presents evidence to think it different, then like I can move camps. I'm open to it. But that's where I've been comfy for a long time. So
I'm still very hesitant to accept it because I, like you, am worried that it could cheapen the lore of both Elden Ring and or the Dark Souls franchise, or even Demon Souls, based off of how the one set in the new Elden Ring trailer for the Switch 2 kind of looked like the fluted knight armor set in Demon Souls. So, like, if they are connected, like, what significance does that have on like the Lordran ending from Dark Souls 3 when you become the Lord of Hollows, allegedly, or the Stomp ending, or the Let It Fade ending, or the Link ending? It would be. I'm afraid that that would kind of step on the significance of all of those. And if Elden Ring was essentially a continuation of Dark Souls, it'd be very strange to then try to connect that whole concept of disparity and other potential mechanical considerations from Dark Souls into Elden Ring. Although I do think there are a lot of overlaps, don't get me wrong, but like darkness, especially in humanity, it's like, well, why is that so different now?
yeah. Well, yeah.
Pastor
I think it's
asked,
just called.
were you facetious
Go ahead.
about Ronnie too? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, I'm a sucker, man. That I'm serious. When she's in the Eternal City and she's like, I don't deserve people who like are as loyal to me as you, E.G. and Blythe are. I don't know how such few dialogue words like I think if somebody said something like that to me in real life, I would also be like, I'll follow you wherever you go, whatever you need. Um, yeah, I'm just kind of a sucker. But I also like now that I'm thinking about it a bit more, Beatrice from Dark Souls, because she just helps you and then dies.
The little girl witch. When you said Beatrice, I'm like Final Fantasy IX. That's where my mind first goes to.
Yeah. No, yeah, she's the witch. She helps you with Moonlight Butterfly, and then she can help you with the Four Kings, and then you find her corpse in the Valley of Drakes, and
So
her
I
armor looks really cool.
I think I summoned her only once on stream when I was trying to get footage for Dark Souls 1 against Moonlight Butterfly, and she killed it before I even really was paying attention because I think I was like talking to chat. Isn't her model like based on a little girl, or is that her concept art? I don't remember.
Yeah, she
Oh,
has concept art for a little girl, but her in game is like she has concept art for little girl and an adult,
yeah,
but
that's
her
what it
in game
was.
model is only an adult.
Okay, fair
And
enough.
yeah, like I feel like she's tied in with lore threads that I'm really excited about, but there's like there's just almost nothing about like her armor set doesn't tell you much about her. There's not a lot of I don't know. It's hard to piece together what her story is. At least I haven't managed very well, but I think she's cool because her armor looks cool.
Fair enough. All right, yeah. So those are pretty much all of the softball questions that I wanted to start us off with before we transition into talking about your latest video and some of the topics surrounding it. So first, I did want to apologize because on reviewing some of the comments that I was making throughout the video, I realized I was being perhaps a little bit what's the word? Unfair, I guess, in some of my criticisms, and there were some misunderstandings because I wasn't entirely sure if you were saying that Radagon is Velka is meant in a more literal manner, which it kind of seemed that way to me at the time, but it seemed that you didn't entirely mean it that way. So if you'd like to go ahead and address some of that stuff, by all means, feel free.
Oh, well, first of all, no apology necessary, but that's really kind of you. Uh, and uh, yeah, I mean, I put a video out on the internet. Like, if people don't like it or want to make fun of it, that's part of putting things on the internet. So like, I mean, of course, I would prefer it if everybody in the world saw the thing I made and was like, "That is super cool and convincing," and I loved every bit of it. Like that's the ideal, the dream. But like, I don't begrudge somebody for not conforming to my fantasy reality. Um, Holy shit! Stella B says that they're Velka.
We're
We are
all
all
Velka.
Velka. I think we are all Velka. I like that. I am obsessed, like many others. Um, Sorry, I lost my train of thought as I was
Coming to the
uh
realization that you were Velka.
yeah, coming that I've been Velka the whole time. Um yeah, no, but that was just to explain that uh that like yeah, I don't think you did anything inappropriate. That I'm pretty psyched that you were sharing my video with people who haven't seen it before. I I made it because I I think I have a cool idea and I want to like share it with people. Um, Not because like I want to convince everybody like this is canon and you have to agree with me, but like, you know, I get excited about something and then I'm like, man, I want someone to be as excited about this as I am. And in real life, I am short on people who can get as excited about Dark Souls lore as I am. So,
All right.
internet video.
So for clarification purposes, when you say Radagon is Velka, how literal are you being with that?
So in my mind, like especially pre Night Rain, like that is like I mean, I so what I think is Elden Ring is like a retelling of Dark Souls story. Like this is speculation. I don't think like nobody has to think this is true, but based on the various interviews Miyazaki has done and George R. R. Martin has done and stuff, I think that Miyazaki took basically Dark Souls story, the main characters and the main events that he likes that are core to this world, and he gave that to George R. R. Martin to like fill it out, and he split some characters into multiple characters and filled out some of the events so like there's more intrigue and politics and the timeline like I think he fleshed out the world of Dark Souls more. And then I think they jumbled up a bunch of the uh like the iconography and the character names and stuff. But I think that Elden Ring is like a reimagining and a retelling of Dark Souls. And so when I say Radagon is Velka, I I don't think it's one character hopped universes. Uh, I think it's like Miyazaki has this character that's called Velka in Dark Souls, and then in this retelling of Elden Ring, he took that same character concept and named them Radagon. Um, so that's what I mean. I mean it in like a thematic.
Archetypal kind of way.
Yes, yeah, archetypal kind of way. So yeah, that's why I think like if one character did something in their game, then there's a good chance the other character in the other game did something very similar. But it's not like I think, well, because Velka did this in Dark Souls, then she hopped universes to Elden Ring and then did the exact same thing. That is like I yeah. But then to be fair, after Night Rain was announced, and I had some comments on my video of people who pointed out that George R. R. Martin said in an interview that Miyazaki asked him to write a sequel to Dark Souls, which like I hadn't considered before I read these comments. It honestly wasn't on my mind that Elden Ring could be an in-universe sequel to Dark Souls. But like that kind of possibility opened in my mind after reading those comments and after the Night Rain trailer. Like maybe it is meant to be a continuation. But like I don't know. That's not my default. That's not my favorite. But I'm open to the idea, and I don't want to tell anyone they're wrong. If you like the idea that Elden Ring is a sequel, like an in-universe sequel, like I I don't want to tell someone they're wrong. I think that's fun, but that's not what I'm thinking when I made my video. And like when I'm making my future imaginary videos with my future imaginary free time.
You're perfectly fine with that. So yeah, you talking about the potential archetypal similarities
Oh, this
between
is awesome.
Radagon and everybody. I'm a lot more comfortable with that kind of theory as well, and I want to put you at ease that I am interested in a lot of the parallels between the games as well. I do think that's a pretty valid way to looking at them at times, but of course I am more hesitant when it becomes a little bit more forced, I would say, and sometimes I think people put the cart a little bit before the horse and try to force connections because they believe in a grander connection to begin with. So that's kind of one reason why
Mhm.
I tend to be a little bit reticent to um, entertain the topic too much, because sometimes if you give people an inch, they take a mile, and it goes a way that I don't necessarily like sometimes. So just wanted to put you a little bit more at ease there. So I've got a bunch of questions for you. It's always a little bit difficult trying to pick from one right now in terms of like where the conversation's going. So I think I'll just pick one and ask you, if Radagon equals Velka, then do you think Gwyn equals America, and or do you think Gwyn was married to Velka? And of course, I guess that's essentially two questions, even though I was trying to limit myself to one. So feel free to take it away whichever way you see fit.
Oh yeah, for sure. So the in my imagination, I'm going to make a series of lore videos that kind of paint the picture of how I see like my reading of the Elden Ring slash Dark Souls story, since I do think they're retellings. Like that's not confirmed anywhere, but like that's the story I want to tell, and I imagine doing several videos to kind of paint that picture. But how it goes for me is like Radagon is the new version of Velka, and Radagon is Marika. Therefore, Marika is Velka. So I do not think Marika is Gwyn because Marika is Velka in the repeating themes context, not literal character
She does
concept.
have a cut braid.
Oh yeah, yeah, and So does Velka. Different
Yep.
colored hair though, so it's impossible. Um, the and yeah, and actually, what I allude to this at the end of my um, Radagon is Velka video, or the secrets of Muriel's secrets that solve the oldest mysteries. I while I'm speaking to a public audience, I want to apologize for the clickbait title. The, all of the advice I could find on YouTube was to give your video a clickbait title, or you like, or people won't see it. And I think at the time I had like 100 subscribers when I released it, so I was like, yeah, any tip to increase the viewers of this video I worked hard on, I'm gonna do. So
I think
I
in a way, they're not wrong, but I think in some ways the term clickbait has certain connotations with it, which kind of dilutes what it originally meant. Where if you just have something interesting enough to bait people into clicking on your video, it doesn't necessarily have to be like scandalous, but just something that can intrigue somebody to like search it. So for me personally, if you were like, "Hey, Radagon is Velka," I'd be like, "What is this?" That I think that alone could be
mm,
clickbaity. But which I mean, I'm not going to blame you or anybody else for coming up with clickbait, even if I don't like it at times, because it's very obvious that it works. And one of my pet peeves is what I call the Call of Groody face. If you're familiar with that,
not familiar with the Call of Duty face. No.
I doubt it because it's a term that I've essentially made up. So I remember seeing this stupid image a long time ago of this kid holding up a picture of a Xbox One game called Call of Groody 2. And so I have it on my screen right now, and he has a Call of Groody. And like this face to me is just emblematic of what became wrong with every YouTube thumbnail around this time and then henceforth. And so I call it the Call of Groody face.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
mean it works, but I hate
yeah.
it.
Well, yeah, and I just, if anybody else is like, "Hey, your title is misleading" or something, I think that's fair. I'm not I don't love the title of my video. It was a strategic calculation. Meh. Um, sorry if I rug pulled you. Um, yeah, but I digress. What was I? What was the main question before I rambled about the title?
Whether or not Gwyn was America or things along those
Right,
lines.
right. So basically I think the Gwyn analog in Elden Ring is missing. So um, one of the things I get excited about that like it's pure speculation, but I explained that I think Elden Ring is like a retelling of Dark Souls lore, and they jumbled up a lot of the iconography and the character names. So I think they mirrored and inverted a lot of things. And in Dark Souls, you can see the sun in most outdoor, or like you don't see the there's clouds in every outdoor scene. So, but you can see sun rays and a bright spot, and you can see the sun in Dark Souls
Actually,
frequently.
it's an illusion.
Well, but only in Anor Londo, because then if you go back to Undead Burg, or well, maybe they just didn't have the resources to. That's a
So
good point.
there's a little bit of a discrepancy in the Japanese, and it's been so long that I looked at this that I don't remember 100% what it is off the top of my head. It might have been the intro. Oh, I think it's probably the intro of DS1, where it says that like the world of man is becoming darkened or something like that. And I think that's supposed to tie into how Anor Londo doesn't have a true sun there. But anyway, that's not entirely
Okay.
relevant. I just
Yeah.
thought you'd be interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, I am, because it's also entirely. Oh, I should have mentioned in my intro. I forgot to mention. Maybe it's interesting for anyone listening to this to know. I'm a game developer. I've been working in game development for like over 15 years, and I specialize in like 3D character art and animation. Um, so I have more than probably your like average typical insight into how games get built. Not that that matters that much. Like any any kind of information I derive from that, like if I look at something and think like, oh, that was probably they probably did that for a budget reason or something. For me, I count that evidence in the same bucket as like, um, oh, this is similar to Greek mythology. Maybe this part of the game was inspired by Greek mythology, because like no doubt parts of the game were inspired by Greek mythology, but I can't like ask Miyazaki like which parts are and are not. Like where did you at what point did you diverge from Greek mythology and what points are you adhering to it? Like I can't know. I have no way to confirm that. So it's like it's fun to think about, and it's like a fun place to start looking for evidence.
I have a
Um,
feeling that a lot of it is kind of like Evangelion, if you're familiar with that, where Miyazaki would probably just answer, "Lol, I thought it was cool," and just like leave it there.
I bet. I mean, if anybody has tried to like write or make up their own stuff before, I feel like that's very relatable. Like why would I do this? Because I think it's cool. Like I think flying castles are cool. That's why there's a flying castle in my fantasy world. Uh Sorry, that was a totally random aside. Um but yeah, getting back to where is Gwyn in Elden Ring? So in Dark Souls, the sun is like pretty prominent, um, and the moon is mentioned because there's like the dark sun Gwendolyn, who is a dark moonlight sorcerer, and there's moonlight sorcery, and there's the dark moon blade and stuff. There's mentions of the moon, but you don't see it anywhere, and it's pretty obscure. Like the dark moon Nitess is like um, oh wait, no, this is like cut content or from interviews or something where Miyazaki said she was meant to be part of like a heretical religion or a like a branching religion from the Way of White or something. Um, but anyway, the sun is prominent, the moon is obscured. In Elden Ring, the besides the Erd tree, the moon is like the most obvious feature. I think it's gorgeous. Like the moon is so in your face in Elden Ring, and it's awesome. Um, and then you meet the queen of the full moon and her daughter, like the most popular ending. Rani is the dark moon queen goddess or something, depending on which ending you pick. Like the moon is a big deal in Elden Ring. Like so an example of like flipping the iconography. And like in Dark Souls, all of the NPCs talk about Gwyn and how awesome Gwyn was, except for Kaith, who talks about how shit Gwyn was. And then Gwyn is the last boss. And in Elden Ring, everyone talks about Marika the Eternal and how great she is, except for a couple of people who hate her. And then Marika is the last boss because Marika is Radagon. So, um, and like Gwyn is a dude and Marika is a dudette. Uh, so like another mirroring, like inverse. And in Dark Souls, I think there's basically a queen-shaped hole in the Dark Souls lore. Um, like if you just look at Gwendolyn, his items descriptions say he's a legitimate son of Gwyn. Um, and if there's a legitimate son, that applies the possibility of an illegitimate son, which implies like a formal structure, like a you know, uh, uh, it implies there's a queen, basically, like or a consort or whatever. There's like one mother who can make legitimate children, and there's other mothers who can make illegitimate children. Um, and yeah, so I think there's like, but a queen is not mentioned. There's these statues of like a woman wearing a crown, but it's not explicit like who she is or if she's a queen or not. Tons of room to speculate, but there's basically a queen-shaped hole in Dark Souls lore. And I think there is a king-shaped hole in Elden Ring lore. and
So,
that's
how do you
that's
feel
why
about
I'm
like Godfrey and Radagon fitting that king-sized hole?
yeah, yeah, good call. Because that does yeah throw a bit of a wrench in it. Um, and I felt like I was prepared for exactly that question when I was thinking about this yesterday. So give me just a moment.
Ladies and gents,
um,
we got him. No, it's fine. I've got other
um,
follow-up questions about like the whole America Gwyn situation, but I'm just letting your thoughts get out.
yeah, but like I, let's see. I guess what I'm missing from them is so what I'm hunting for. Like I'm not trying to say this is true and so this definitely happened, but like what I'm excited to find evidence for and hopefully make a compelling video on at some point is like my search, my hunt for the Lord of Sunlight in Elden Ring is in Dark Souls, Gwyn has sacrificed himself to link the first flame. So in Elden Ring, I'm looking for a king that has sacrificed himself to preserve the world, basically. And um, like Godfrey was banished from the lands between, and then he comes back. And Radagon is closer to the mark because he's crucified and trapped within the Erd Tree, and like basically preserving the worlds. But I think Radagon is Velka, and therefore I don't think Radagon is Gwyn. So yeah, that's why I think there's still a Gwyn shaped hole in Elden Ring.
I think this might help your arguments a little bit that in Dark Souls 1, it's very clearly a more patriarchal society, whereas Elden Ring is inverted with the matriarchal society, with Marika being the god, essentially, and Radagon, while he's a lord, he doesn't quite fit that bill, essentially. Would that help align with some of your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think so. And also, this comment from Rooster Rick, Marika is Radagon, so he's not really a king, and we see that Godfrey is essentially a slave. Um, yeah, like I think that is an excellent way to phrase it. Like I buy onto that rationale completely.
So going back to the whole Gwyn parallels, I want to push back a little bit, and I would go so far as to argue that I think America does fit that Gwyn parallel in many ways. If you think about the rationale for Gwyn's actions in terms of trying to keep his age prolonged as long as he could by linking the flame, I think you could argue something similar may be going on with America removing the rune of destined death to keep her age in a bit of an eternal stupor where nobody can die. So that's kind of one of the parallels that I see between her and Gwyn specifically. How do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, like I I agree. Like and especially the way it's like that the world is not dying, that people aren't dying, and how that's creating like an immense amount of suffering. Like the world is fucked up now because America won't let the world die, and or Gwyn is not letting the world die. Like that is extremely similar in both games. Like that's a fair point. Yeah, I just I'm just I feel like if I look hard enough, I can find this missing king.
Fair enough. All right, so I guess one of the other questions is why do you think there are so many parallels with Radagon, and are there any points that you'd like to clarify or bring up that you may not have been able to do so in your video? Because I definitely know how much of a struggle it can be scripting things, editing them, refining them, and having some things end up on the cutting room floor, essentially.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for that question. And yeah, because yeah, when I was making that video, like I do it in a vacuum, and I do have my own headcanon, which is like not the same as every person on the internet's headcanon. So it's easy to eat to get high on your own supply, or I don't know. Anyway, it's hard to
I'm sitting over
sometimes.
here in my corner eating all my head candy, getting high, guys.
Like when you're working on something for a while, it is like in a vacuum, it's hard to choose like should I throw this part away because like like my video is getting long and wordy and like I want to maintain people's interest, but like can I get away with skipping this detail? For example, the hooded statue guys in my like headcanon bubble, like I thought this was closed. Like I'm like, oh yeah, that guy is definitely Radagon. I don't need to convince anybody, so I'm not even gonna bother explaining it. Other people have made videos on it. I'll link them at the end. And yeah, like when I was editing it, I was like, just I don't even need to address this. Everyone will be on board. But I had numerous comments, and then of course your reaction that were like, like why do you think that's Radigan? Like, what are you talking about? Um,
So
so like
to
to
defend myself and my methodology a little bit, I'm very fine with entertaining these options. It's just a lot of what irks me and sets me off and gets me on my soapbox is stating things definitively and not necessarily
mm,
clarifying for the audience who may or may not know better what is fact versus opinion. Because if you've been in like the lore circles for a long time, you'll definitely see people who might not be entirely familiar with the ins and outs of literally every item description. Imagine who may come in with some preconceived notions about what things are and are not in the game based on what they've heard from secondhand sources, which is why I tend to be pretty um, harsh a little bit on making sure what's clear between fact and opinion. And of course, like we're all human, mistakes get made. Sometimes it's easy to forget what is actually said in the game versus what your takeaway was and how widespread that takeaway is just might not be something you're aware of, you know?
oh 100%. The amount of thing like I have written parts of scripts that like I was convinced this is true, and then I went to look for the item description that like I know this is in, to only to realize like, oh, this says something different. Oh no, like I have to rethink this whole thing, or like, I'm sure I read this somewhere, and it sets me off on a whole nother lore hunt. Um, yeah, it's just a lot of information to track for a meager human brain.
If it makes you
Um,
feel any better, I was probably 1 month into scripting my video about gold and silver, and I just kind of taken the English description for the ghost. No, not ghost violet. Are they ghost violets? Gray violets. The gray violet description at face value from the English because it was so simple. I couldn't really imagine it being so different in the Japanese. So I was going off on all these color theory tangents about destined death being red and ghost violets being purple, and how essentially the hue of ghost flame must have been purple in the past because that's essentially what the
mm,
English version of the gray violet says. So I was
right.
getting pretty deep into this project, which was already really long at the time. And then I just happened to look at the Japanese. I'm like, oh my God. The Japanese says nothing about the flower itself actually being the hue of ghost flame. It just says it's the flower of ghost flame, which is a huge discrepancy based
Wow.
off of like how much I was building off of this idea that it just
Oh wow.
sideswiped me so bad. I was like, oh my
So
God.
the Japanese says it's like flowers that grow out of things that have been burned by ghost flame,
No, no,
or
no. It
like
just says that it's the flower of ghost flame. It's. I mean, I could pull it up.
wow.
I'm surprised I didn't pull up
Yeah,
my.
but yeah, I've been on the like ghost flame used to be purple camp forever. And then was all excited when the in the DLC the the creepy skeleton guy who gets the you get the putrescence splooge sorcery from him. The putrescent knight. Um, like it says that that sorcery says that it burns people with ghost flame, and it's this like bluish color. Like it's a different color than uh
Look black
all
and
the
white.
other ghost. Yeah, it's a different color, and I was all excited because I think I even saw someone on YouTube say like it's purple, like we knew it all along. Ghost Flame is purple, and I was like, yeah, it is. But then I played it and I got that spell on my character, and I'm like, that's not purple though. It's more blue than purple. I want it to be purple, but it's not.
All right, so on my screen, I have the Japanese available for us, and Levo was kind enough to paste it into the chat as well. So the final line is essentially saying, as the flower of Ghost Flame, it is considered to call spirits, essentially. And that's very different, but fairly similar in a way to the hue of Ghost Flame. It's believed to be useful in calling forth spirits. So the hue versus the flower is different because Ghost Flame is not freaking violet, you know? So I thought this was a huge indicator that the nature of Ghost Flame was different in the past. So, yeah. It really sucks when you have a thought that gets completely sidetracked, but when you actually go back and like look at things again.
Yeah, but if you're willing to humor me, I'd quickly go through the briefly go through the, I guess, evidence, the case that I neglected to make for why I think the hooded statues could be Radagon.
Absolutely,
Like
go for it.
I think they are, but there's nothing explicit. Like no one else has to think they are. But anyway, here's my pitch. So the main one is the sword that the hooded statues are all wielding. So the Leonine Misbegotten boss that you fight in the Cave of Forlorn, he has Radagon's sword. Like explicitly, unquestioningly, this is Radagon's former sword, and a Leonine Misbegotten has it. All of the other Leonine Misbegottens, except for the one in the Weeping Peninsula, which I don't want to get into because it's inconvenient, but all of the other Leonine Misbegottens wield the same sword that this hooded statue guy wields. So it's like, I feel like it's painting a bit of a picture, like
Let me look at the Leonine Misbegotten. I don't know if I have really good footage of them other than the Golden Order Greatsword Jerk. So I do have the picture of the so-called saint statue on the screen right now.
Yeah, my favorite explanation had been Tarnished Archaeologist's explanation that he's like a generic saint from a certain era, and like that was my headcanon until I think it was Kite Tail's video that I watched where she was like, I think that's Radagon, and then I was like, holy shit, I think she's right.
I could see the similarities there, yeah.
So there's one, and then you find three variations of this statue: the sword wielding one, the one where he's holding a book, and then the one in the Church of Vows where he's holding a torch. And I think these could depict like Radagon's notable history. Like he's first spoken about as the champion in the Liurnian Wars, so you know, being a formidable warrior could earn you a statue with a sword, like a depiction of as a champion. And then he learned both sorceries and oh hey, Scum Mage is in chat. That's cool. Yeah, he learned both sorceries and incantations, so that could be like the book, like the scholar. And then I kind of have two takes in my headcanon for why he's holding the torch in the Church of Vows. One could be that the it's like a ceremonial thing, like you hold a ceremonial torch for getting married or something. I mean, this is based on nothing. This is there's nothing I'm aware of in Elden Ring that says weddings are the ritual involves a torch. I'm just making up stuff when I say maybe it has something to do with Radagon getting married. Only because the only statue variation that has the torch the only place it appears is in the location where Radagon like atoned for his sins and got married. So it's
And
like
that's the
it's not
Church
a
of
huge
Vows. I should have Church of
yeah.
Vows somewhere. Let me look. Yeah,
um
I guess I don't
and so
have as many of the
there's
saint stuff labeled as well as I'd like on my hard drive.
I I'm impressed you can pull up what you did. That like my footage is not well labeled or categorized.
Well, this will be a little bit of a pro tip for all of our content creator friends in the channel. So I want to welcome back in Levelvit as well, and Scummage Info. Welcome into the stream. I've reacted to I think one or two of your videos. Um, hopefully you got mentioned in that stuff if you ever want to go back and watch them as well. So Church of Vows. This is not it. Oh wait, actually this is good enough. Okay, sweet. So I was focusing on the Night Maiden, but I actually got the Torch Dude over
Yeah,
here.
perfect.
And
Yeah.
the one with the book should be in Divine Towers. So maybe this one?
The, I think they're mostly on the bridges to Divine
Got
Towers
it.
and the yeah, exactly. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Um
So my advice to all our content creator friends is to label things pretty well when you're going through and collecting footage, and that can help you out. So for me personally, I have Stormvale, Divine Tower Bridge, Saint Sculpture Statues, Erdtree Reliefs is what I've labeled this, because we have Erdtree Reliefs. I call this dude the Saint Statue, so if I ever have to type in statue, I can find it, or sculpture, I can find it. Saint helps, and then the location stuff helps. It's a real pain in the ass doing it at first, but I think it saves a lot of time in the long run. And these are screenshots. I have my actual footage labeled similarly as well. So like when I talk to NPCs, I type in NPC, their name, as well as like their location, or perhaps something relating to their dialogue, so I can remember what it is without having to actually watch the clip it fully and whatnot.
I am impressed with your diligence. I have tried to label my stuff and like I lose interest too quickly. And I just have a mess. Um
I would recommend
but
doing this while like watching Netflix or having something else that you can kind of pay
mm,
attention to, and just that makes it a lot easier, because otherwise this would be too mind numbing for sure.
good good call. And then the last like explanation I can think of for the torch is like the giant's red braid like mentions Radagon specifically, like Radagon hated his red hair. It, and that is to say like Radagon does have some sort of association with the fire giants, like his like it I don't think it's I don't know what the association is exactly. But like that would just be weird to take the fire giant's red hair item and then in that item talk about Radagon's red hair, and then the explanation is like, just it's just a coincidence that they both had the same hair color. Otherwise, yeah, they have nothing. Like Radagon has nothing to do with fire giants. We just put his name on a fire giant item. Like,
So there is actually a little bit of a discrepancy in the Japanese description for the giant's red braid.
oh,
Let's pull it up. Where are we at? Over here. And this is like one of those things where it sucks being like, well, there's a difference, but I mean, this might impact some people's understanding of the lore. And for all of you who are new or don't understand my methodology for approaching the lore, I try to be even handed about it as I can. And I totally respect the so-called death of the author argument that whatever version of the game is kind of the version you get. And if you want to build all of your lore based on that version, I totally accept that. But for myself personally, because I have the privilege of being able to read the Japanese text, I tend to put that as my primary source material. And when there are discrepancies, I try to cross-reference between the English and the Japanese text to see if there's any kind of information which may have been lost in translation, or if either text can inform the other, because there's definitely been times in previous FromSoft games where the Japanese text has been updated and the English wasn't updated along with the Japanese text, so you might actually have older information which should have been canon at one point but was revised. And so it's kind of a bit of an interesting sleuthing adventure when you're doing things like that. So going to the description of the giant's red braid, um, it says essentially that it is said that Radagon despised his red hair, and could it have been a curse of the giants? Is essentially what the final line is.
Mm.
So was he cursed by the giants to have red hair? I think that's kind of what the implication is supposed to be, as opposed to how the English phrases it that every giant is red of hair, and Radagon was said to have despised his own red locks. Perhaps that was a curse of their kind. So when it says their kind, that lumps in Radagon with the giants, which isn't necessarily how the Japanese phrases it. Whereas,
Yeah, but even the English is ambiguous there.
right,
Like every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square.
exactly.
Um, like every giant has red hair, but not everyone who has red hair is necessarily a giant. Um, but like for my own theory crafting purposes, I feel like putting Radagon's name on a undeniable fire giant item, like on a fire giant's red hair item. Like I don't know what it is. I've heard lots of potential explanations for why. But I think it's fair to assume Radagon has something to do with the fire giants, and therefore the flame of ruin. What is the kiln that it's in called? That big bowl?
Villain of the giants, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah. So when Radagon's holding the torch there, and then that makes me think of the Sword and Night and Flame that talks about how the astrologers were neighbors of the fire giants, and like it is the sword of night and flame, and in this case, night would be like the full moon queen Renala, and flame would then be Radagon, because I'm claiming that the statue depicts Radagon and he's holding a torch, and um
So I have a
yeah.
couple questions. When do you think the Church of Vows was constructed? And could that also influence your interpretation of this being Radagon? And what do you think about like the Nox iconography there as well? And you could answer whichever you choose first.
Um yeah, so uh I think that the I call these the lunar cathedrals. The Church of Vows, I think, would have used to have been called the Cathedral of Manus something or other.
Oh,
And
sorry.
then
I
the
don't
joke.
mean to really cut you off, but I think I need to do this to
Mhm,
help contextualize everything else that you're going to say. So, to
mhm.
pull off a note on my bingo card, I must ask you, what do you think is the situation between America and Radagon and their shared identity? Do you think that they always had one body? Were they two people that were split and then combined later? Because depending on your answer there, that could affect what you're saying here, and I
Yeah.
might not understand that full context. So sorry for cutting you off, but it's a pretty important
Oh,
one, I
no
think.
problem. I actually love that question. And like my answer, I don't know, depending on your perspective, will be more or less satisfying. Uh, because I don't have a concrete answer yet. Like I don't know. See you later, Scum Mage. Uh, and but what I do know is there's a bunch of potential explanations for how the statement Radigan is America could be true. And like with the abundance of explanations, I feel like you can make almost any timeline or theory work by picking your favorite um, explanation. In preparation for a question like this, I made a quick list. So ways established in Elden Ring that a person like Radagon is Marika could be true. Like one, it could just be an alias. Um, like there have always been the same person. There's the Mimic's Veil that Godric used to disguise himself as a woman to escape Lane Dell. Uh, and it's it's called the Mimic's Veil, also known as Marika's Mischief. Marika could have just been disguising herself as Radagon, and it's been an alias the whole time. They've always been the same person. That creates some issues with like the timing of things, like you know, if Marika shattered the Elden Ring while Radagon was still married to Renala, like how did like it, like it could jumble some things up, but
Well,
it's
the
possible
Radagon
if you do
stuff
enough.
should have happened, like the Night of the Black Knife should have happened already after Radagon was married to Marika, essentially. Because I mean, although it's not explicit, it's, I think, a fairly safe assumption to say that the twin Empyreans, Mikola and Melania, had already been born by the time Ranni had killed Godwyn. So that's just kind of my takeaway there. But, right.
Oh, the twin Empyreans were born before Rennie killed Godwyn, and therefore, yeah, okay. I I hadn't factored that in. What was my Miriel? I think it's because Miriel says that after the shattering, like after the Elden Ring was shattered, then Radagon left Renala to go be with Marika to become king, second Elden Lord and king consort.
We could pull up the
So I,
text if you have any questions as well. I've got the text dump available.
but yeah, that's a really good point. If the twin Empyreans already existed, that should happen after Radagon is the second Elden Lord. Um, but even that, so like this is just one possibility that does have lots of lore implications to figure out. Is that they are just literally the same person. It's just an alias and a disguise.
Mm-hmm.
There's there's also deathbed companions, where a deathbed companion like Fia sleeps with the remains of a royal to like capture their essence or something, and then they hug champions to absorb champions' life force, and then they reincarnate the royal that they slept with or something. Uh, so there's some sort of reincarnation ritual, is what I'm getting at. Deathbed companions seem are allegedly able to reincarnate people. So it's possible that somebody reincarnated Marika, or like and like what happens if you reincarnate somebody who's not dead? I don't know. Could be. That one's not my favorite, but like it's a possibility. There's like the brothers D, who are twins who share a single soul. So like while one is active, the other is inactive. Um, and like potentially Marika and Radagon are twins who share a soul. And in that sense, they're the same person. There's of course mimic tiers, where like the Eternal City was trying to create a lord, and then there's Radagon, who does become the second Elden Lord. Uh, Perhaps Radagon or Marika is a mimic tier of the other, and then that's how the statement can be true. Um, there's also like in the DLC, there's Saint Trina, who's like a discarded piece of Mikola. He discarded his love, and that turned into an autonomous character called Saint Trina. Maybe Radagon is like a discarded piece of Marika. And then there's a rebirth. Like Radagon gave the Amber Egg, the Rune of Rebirth, to Renala, and so he definitely had access to the ability to respec, I guess, rebirth yourself. Maybe Marika is reborn in that sense. So my point of enumerating all of those is I don't have one that I'm like, this is the one I think it is, and this is establishes the timeline. For me, I try to just like I lean on that the game is pretty explicit that Radagon is Marika, and I don't know, as long as one of these explanations could work in whatever other theory I'm chasing, then then that's the one I go with.
Um, I kind of understand what you're saying, and I also kind of hate it to a degree, but I don't blame you by any means because it makes it a little bit more difficult for me to know your position and to tell if it's actually going to be consistent. If it isn't a static position to begin with, if it's one that's flexible, then that makes it a little bit harder to pin things down. So the
Yep.
reason why I
I,
asked
I
that in relation to like the Church of the Nox and whatnot would be that if you think Radagon is America, how would that affect the timeline if they're always one body and the relation between America and the Nox and Radagon? Because if he came into the timeline later, that's perfectly fine. But if you think he was always an aspect of America, that's also perfectly fine, and that could potentially tie into this as well. But if he's like a late creation and the Nox happened way earlier, I would ask, why do you think that a nobody essentially would have been Radagon affiliated with the Nox in this place to begin with? So
Oh, well, so I'm on board with I think Radagon is old. I don't think he just appeared in the Liurnian Wars. I just think that's the first mention of him in Elden Ring's history books. Um, but I don't think whatever the explanation for him existing is, I think he predates that. So that's why I think you can find him in the Eternal Cities underground, is because I think he was prominent that long ago. Um, so whatever the explanation is, I think he has been around for long enough to be a big deal in the Nox culture, for example. And actually, very recently, I thought, this is way out of left field, and I put this together last week, so forgive the half-baked theory that I'm tossing out there right now. But I was noticing that the crystal tiers, the ruptured crystal tier, that you can get two of them. And if you're looking at it on one of the wikis, they have the same icon, but they have two different icons in the game. And if you look closely at them, one of the ruptured crystal tiers looks like this piece of amber is shattering. Yeah, exactly. So this is the other one. So and then the other ruptured crystal tier looks like it's been, yeah. So this one to me looks like it's in the process of shattering, and the other one looks like it's being put back together, almost like the Elden Ring was shattered and then repaired. Like Marika shattered the Elden Ring and then Radagon repaired it. And I just checked this last week when the idea came to me, and there's a lot of tinfoil hat stuff here. But the one where it's being shattered is dropped by the Erd Tree avatar in Liurnia, and it's right next to the astrologer tower that has Marika's statue in it.
the converted fringe tower, I think.
Yeah. So right next to this tower that has a Marika statue in it, the Erd Tree avatar drops the one where it looks like it's being shattered. The one that drops the one where it looks like it's getting put back together is in the consecrated snowfields. And one of the ways you can get to it is there's a waygate teleporter, and guarding that waygate is one of Radagon's red wolves. And the avatar you fight is one of the putrid avatars, one of the rot avatars. And the Erd Tree avatars have the big tree staff, and the putrid avatars have the candle tree staff where it depicts the Erd Tree burning.
Bro, it bothers
And
me so much that the descriptions for both of them are the same.
they are identical. It's just the icon that's different. And so literally last week was the first time it occurred to me that perhaps Radagon has something to do with rot. Maybe Malenia inherited her rot from her father, because like this could be a story that they're telling through very obscure means, because it's the rotting tree that spews scarlet rot at you, and Radagon is the red-haired guy, and anyway, and then that thought led me to go, maybe, and you find that what I'm claiming are Radagon statues on the way to the underground Scarlet Rot Lake, which is also right underneath Rhea Lucaria, where Radagon had a lot of influence through part of history. Anyway, last week I just had the idea of, what if that lake of rot underground was Radagon's doing? And yeah,
Right,
so I think Radagon is old.
with these two icons, I couldn't tell you which I think would be shattered and which would be being put back together. Could you say which is which, if you can see my screen right now, like left or right?
Yeah. Yeah, so the one that looks like it's shattered, like in the process of being shattered, is the one on the right. And the
This one,
one that
okay.
looks like it's been put back together is the one on the left. And the one on the left is correct me if I'm mistaken, but I'm pretty sure the one on the left is the one dropped by the Putrid avatar, and the one on the right is the one dropped by the Erdtree avatar.
I could not tell you based off the icons. I'm not that crazy about the details like this.
Well, anyway, it was literally last week that I was looking at this, and that's the only like why I'm going off on this tinfoil aside here. But
Yeah, I think that's a neat
uh,
idea, but I don't know if I could agree if either are being shattered or put back together right now, to be honest.
but and I also think like there are hints like in the DLC story trailer where America, there's that scene where she's like holding the weird threads, and she's opening this portal between like all of the corpses and the golden land on the other side of the portal, like whatever that is meant to be depicting. It has always struck me as strange that she is topless in that scene, because Radagon is always topless, like in his Elden Lord statues, and when we fight him, and Marika is always not topless.
Always.
It-
That's why she had
yeah,
the wet nurse take care of Godwin.
yeah.
All right.
But but
Hold
I always
on.
thought that was weird. And like,
Nope, wrong one.
why is Marika topless there? And it is, yeah, and I think like maybe because she was pretending to be like, maybe she was uh um recently pretending to be Radagon, or in her Radagon persona,
So,
shortly before this is shot.
do you remember what I was telling you earlier about the giant braid and the curse of the giants?
Hmm.
If Radagon was cursed by the giants and is not of the giants' blood, and their curse turned his hair red, could there have been a time when Radagon was originally blonde?
Whoa.
And if that
Uh,
was the case, could that pertain to the story trailer that I've got on screen now?
well, I mean, like I can't. I'm not aware of any text that says that can't be the case.
Exactly. So
Um.
that's why I just wanted to bring that possibility up for you and the chat. And Stella brings the very valuable insight that sometimes you
Oh
just don't
yeah.
want to wear a shirt. Me, I personally don't like wearing a
I can
shirt when I'm
imagine.
cooking bacon.
Oh yeah, and Elden Enthusiast points out there's that one blonde Radagon statue.
See, I've never agreed
I
that it's a blonde Radagon statue, but I digress. Individual interpretations there.
Yeah. Well, but all of that is to say, like, I don't have the timeline pieced out. Like, I don't have like, I don't know if you've watched much Quaylag. Like, she has quite an impressive timeline mirror board filled out, and um I don't think I'm quite studious enough, academic enough to like I don't have a solid timeline um worked out yet, but I do think Radagon is older than the Liurnian Wars.
If it makes you feel better, I've been trying to piece the timeline together for 2 years and still don't feel particularly confident myself.
Yeah, it's tough, and it's also influenced by a lot of like, there's a lot of popular ideas that have been popular for a while. Like, early lore creators are like, yeah, this is what happened, and it like, uh, not only is like a lot of the lore community bought into like, yes, this has to be the order of events, but like it influences me too. I think like this is definitely the order of events, and I don't realize that that is just based on like something I saw 2 years ago, and it is not based on like what the game actually says, you know? It is really difficult to put together a solid timeline.
Yeah. Don't worry about that too much. That's kind of why I like to ask these types of questions because sometimes, like, going with one thought can seem fine at first, and that's why I like to extrapolate from that thought and test it to its limits to see if it's okay essentially with the rest of the text that we're given. And Blackcurrant, well, Laura, welcome into the stream. You're saying that you don't think it's possible for a timeline without contradictions. I certainly would like one, but I suspect that you might be right, as much as I would never want to admit it.
Yeah, I'm so desperate for these things to be like totally consistent and rational. But like I want that to be the case really bad, but my experience in game development leaves me thinking it's very likely they're not. And from I don't have you seen much of oh man, their name's escaping me, but they've been streaming from soft lore forever, and they're wonderful. Um
I do watch a lot of
uh
channels, so I probably have had some familiarity.
I can't the Snack Covenant, Sophie
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah. I've definitely like worked with them in the past. Sophie and
oh cool.
Sinclair lore.
Yeah. Yeah. So they're great. I mean, I've never spoken to them, but I've watched a bunch of their stuff. Uh, and now I don't remember why I brought them up. I tried too hard to remember their names.
Timeline
Uh,
considerations or things like that.
Wow.
Architecture, perhaps.
Oh, yeah. No, the Sophie in particular has shared a lot of insight about like the troubled development like of Dark Souls 3. Like she shared all sorts of stuff about how it looked like they were Dark Souls 3 was supposed to have one flow, like this area is supposed to connect to that area, and like it was originally kind of set up to be like a very different game, but then due to like development issues, they're like, okay, we're gonna reconnect some areas, we're gonna cut that entire zone and throw it out of the game. And then we're gonna like, but we had the boss done, so we're gonna put that boss in a different zone and then move that zone's intended boss somewhere. Like all sorts of shuffling happens to kind of get the game done. And in my experience, that's really common. We're like, you're trying to make a game, you have a plan for how it's going to be, and then, you're running out of time and money, and so you start figuring out what could work. And it's different from, I would imagine, writing a book or a novel where you really have control over all the variables. Like the story is definitely what you intend the story to be. In game development, there's lots of room for like, well, I wanted the story to be this, but like,
What do you mean the
we're out of
setting for the
time.
second chapter isn't done? That it's not going to ship.
Yeah, or like we like they were supposed to have in Demon Souls, the yellow monk fight where like a PC gets summoned in as a boss fight.
Yes, sir.
Um, so I'm pretty sure it was Sinclair Lore who pointed out that the there's evidence that they intended to do that in Izalith. That that's why you can get infected by the like chaos demon worm head thing, was
Hmm.
because they were planning to have um a PC summoned as the boss fight. And it was going to tie into some chaos demon Izalith stuff. But then, for whatever reason, they had to like cut it. And I think those things can definitely affect the lore and the story that they're telling. Anyway, like I am open. Like I think it's likely that there are contradictions within all of these games. That like if the lore Bible says X, the what ended up shipping in the game either says or implies Y. Um, I think that's a real possibility.
I mean,
But
I
man,
think
I
there's
want
also
the
the possibility that even names shifted throughout development at times, and I don't know
yeah.
how relevant this is. I've kind of rethought some things about it somewhat recently, but have you ever looked at the 1.0 version of Elden Ring?
I haven't no. Like I mean I've seen some of the text from it, but I haven't like
So, if you ever have like the physical disc of Elden Ring, if you just wipe all of your save files, put the disc in, and don't connect to the internet for it to get updated, you can play on 1.0 still to this day. A lot of the text is very wildly different, and sometimes it's kind of crazy how much more direct it can be because it's very bare bones with what they did with the translation. But I'll show you some things which are pretty mind blowing. Let's see 1.0. So on 1.0, the Night Maiden and Swordstress Puppet's description said, Spirit Ashes summons the spirit of a descendant of Marika from nearby a rebirth monument found throughout the land. Summoning consumes FP. But
wow.
that one is very direct and is like, there it
Yeah.
is. The Nox are descendants of Marika, confirmed, but cut confirmed, So I'm really
Which
curious
means
about how
the
much we should take that as canon because in a way you can still
mm,
play it and see it, but like it's cut
well
content, but it's also not in a way.
they did the same thing in Dark Souls 3. I remember when the Ring City launched, I think it was Ashen Hollow who pointed this out, that when the Ring City DLC first launched, the description of like this bow and arrow from Ulasil. Ah man, I can't remember the details, but like the initial launch of it was like pretty explicit. Like this bow has something to do with Manus and the what happened in Ulasil. And then in a patch like a week or two later, they changed it to a much more vague like this bow has something to do with a magical land of golden sorcery, maybe. And
I don't remember
yeah.
that, or I don't think I've ever heard that to be able to comment on it directly. So one of my favorite descriptions that got changed between 1.0
Oh,
is Morgoth's Fell Omen Cape,
that's
robe
huge.
worn by Morgoth, the Elden Lord.
That's insane.
So I was thinking about this. When you look at Morgoth, he's called the Grace Given Lord, and I wondered if they just interpreted Grace Given or like the Lord of Grace essentially, and thought he was the Elden Lord
Mhm.
at first, and that might have like flown by before they got like the full description to translate and put back into the game. So yeah, I don't ever
Yeah.
really think that there was a time that Morgoth should have been the Elden Lord, but we do have other instances of names being changed around in development, even for Elden Ring, because could you believe it? But Godfrey as Hoarlu was originally Gold Mask.
What?
I'm
God,
joking a little bit here. I
what?
apologize. So what had happened was, uh, Gold Mask was never really Godfrey, but let me pull up something which is really funny, and you would need to listen to the stream to hear this. But
Like I can't even parse what you just said. Like I
we have
can't
you
think
know
of
how
any commonality between Gold Mask and Godfrey.
it's because there's not, but this is kind of funny. if you go to the internal files, you'll have, you know how the characters get introduced in the game? Well, you essentially have
Mhm.
Ania saying, I don't know if you could hear this right now, but here we go.
Horaru, the gold mask.
Horaru, the gold mask. So what I think had happened was Godfrey didn't have his alternate ego of Horalu at that point in the development of, hiring all the voice actors and getting them into the studio, recording sessions, all that nonsense. And they gave him the Horalu identity much later on. And I think Horalu Ru was originally Gold Mask, and then they just repurposed it. So I think the characters were essentially the same. It's just that names change in development.
Yeah, like a just for fun tangent. Do you want to hear? I've been intending to make a YouTube short on what I think the meaning of Horalu's name is.
Go for it.
And I haven't. But anyway, uh, an Elden dork exclusive take here. So I think Horalu's name is because I've googled like the meaning of lots of characters' names,
Mm-hmm.
and I have not seen a satisfying one online. And I'm proud of this one because I just made it up and I like it. So I think Horalu's name, I mean his last name Lu, is probably related to Lux, like light or something. But Hora, I think it's a battle cry. It's hoorah, um, and it tracks because um, if you look at like the northerner description when you're creating a character, it says people that come from the north might have been they say people in the north are descendant from trolls or descendant from giants, and also in the north you basically find that like using roars as attacks and from the troll medallion, but like this whole like war cry as an attack battle style is kind of troll origin. And yeah, and Horalu does a bunch of yelling and screaming, and the warrior class, like the tarnished, do a bunch of like war cries and stuff. And I think they were like, so what did this troll descendant warlord guy what should his name be? And they were like, his name should be a war cry, like that's his defining feature, he's the war cry guy. And then they made his name like hoorah and then weird.
So how does that feel now that I've explained this whole gold mask angle to you?
I don't even know what to say about that. Like these are such different characters. I can't imagine how they're connected. Like
So I would have really liked, unironically, that if Gold Mask just had his Master Roshi moment where he gets the reveal, he takes off the mask, and then he just buffs up in front of you and just beats the absolute crap out of you for like the first 5 times you fight him.
oh man. That would blow. Oh, you want to know my personal? I think Gold Mask on his quest to learn the truths of the universe or whatever. Um, he is approaching learning the praise the sun emote. Like there's inner order emote, then the outer order emote, and then Gold Mask does the total order emote, which is the T pose. And then what's not in Elden Ring is the praise the sun like Solaire move. I feel like that's the next stage.
Hmm.
Gold Gold Mask is working his way up to the pinnacle praise the sun. That's just another for fun
I think the new two finger emote
unjustifiable thing.
is close. It's obviously different because it's curved, but it's close. And I think there's something else that's close to praise the sun other than the ring gesture. But yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that's like yeah.
Okay.
Like I wouldn't hang my hat on that. I just think it's funny.
So to return to some questions from earlier about like the whole Nox and Radagon stuff, you said you think Radagon is most likely very old and all that's fine with me. Um You think Radagon is represented in the statues with the sword, the book, and the torch. I would be curious as to why you think that his statue would be in the Divine Tower stuff, and why there would be essentially a lot more iconography of Radagon than Godfrey throughout the lands between, when I think the Divine Tower stuff is older and more in line with the Godfrey reign, but I think the Divine Towers are probably older than Marika's reign to begin with. So if they are older, do you think that the statues were placed there after the bridge's constructions? And yeah, just your thoughts in general about that.
Yeah, okay. Well, so, and again, like, purely in the territory of speculation, like, I am not bothered at all if anybody disagrees with this take. But, like, what I've been leaning towards in my headcanon is that, like, the hooded statues aren't replacements. Like, they've been there since they were constructed. And I've been thinking, like, that I've been thinking for a while that Godfrey is a bit of a fraud, that like he hasn't actually done everything that he's credited with doing. And recently I've been thinking it may have been Radagon who has been doing like Godfrey may have been taking credit for Radagon's accomplishments. Like, history was rewritten. Like, Marika, who is Radagon, whatever the mechanic is, either an alias or some sort of clone twin, whatever, was the one who was actually super powerful and killing giants, and because all the giants are killed with these like thorny stake things, and Radagon is associated with thorns for reasons I can get into later. And I've been kind of thinking that, like, basically Marika / Radagon did all of the killing and warring and taking everything over, and then at some point was like, oh, I need to have like an Elden Lord for some reason. I need to like basically give credit to somebody else for some political who knows what the scheme is. And
well, a crown is warranted with strength.
Yeah. So, yeah, Mariko, and I also think that when my reading of there's the like Godfrey talisman that you get in the DLC says something like Godfrey accepted the blessing of the Erd Tree or the Erd Tree sap like stoically, like he wasn't with no fear, without flinching, something like that.
The Erd Tree's old sap becomes amber, treasured as the most precious of jewels in the age of Godfrey, the first Elden Lord. Wait, no, that's the wrong one. Hold on.
Yeah,
that's from the base game. My fault. I was like, oh, Godfrey. That's got to be it, because there's nothing about Godfrey in the DLC. Okay.
Actually, that's another. But that one is in the DLC. But
yeah, a talisman depicting Godfrey, first Elden Lord, receiving the precious sap. Blah blah blah. The Lord accepted the sap stoically, without any sign of wavering. No wonder the Lord of the Erd Tree casts a long shadow over the lands.
And like, this is pure headcanon, but after seeing like what I interpreted to be like Miquella puppeting Radagon when like Miquella got on his back.
You mean Radagon?
Yeah, what did I say?
Radagon.
Yeah.
Too many similar names. It's all right.
Yeah, that's going to happen often with me. I apologize.
I didn't know if you were saying, like, if Miquella beat us, he was going to puppet Radagon. I'm like, oh, I could see that, but I just wanted to be on the same page.
No, I meant the way that Miquella is puppeting Radon really reminded me of, like, I think it's deliberately looks similar to how Sirash is on Godfrey's back.
Mm-hmm.
And then with this line here, I just thought like maybe like Marika, the goddess, got on Godfrey's back and like puppeted Godfrey, and like that's why he like stoically and unflinchingly accepted the Erd Tree's blessing, because he somehow knew that he was like sacrificing agency over his body or something. I mean, like this is a stretch. Like I'm making this up. I you know, I'm aware that I'm making it up, but that's that's the story that popped into my head when I saw Mikola and Radon, and when I read this line, I was like, oh, maybe Marika was puppeting Godfrey. And I can't remember why that ties into what we were talking about before.
I was curious about how you were going to do that. I'm like, okay, so we were talking about the Radagon statue in like the Divine Towers, and you were saying that you think Godfrey should be known as fraud-free, and then
Yeah. Uh, yeah. So like, I don't know exactly why Marika slash Radagon thought that like, oh, I need a Elden Lord stand-in person here, but for some reason they did, and yeah, and they're like, yeah, let's credit Godfrey, this warlord, with all of the stuff that like Marika slash Radagon actually did, and like so that's been my headcanon. Like these statues were built a long time ago, um, and like as mankind was first like defeating all of the giants and stuff, and at that time, like everybody knew the real lion of the battlefield was Radagon, and people were building statues to Radagon. And then at some point they're like, oh no, let's rewrite history. Godfrey actually did all of that stuff, but like, there's all these statues that already exist. They're not going to replace every statue.
so
Anyway.
you think that these statues were created before the war against the giants, or do you have different thoughts?
Oh, good question. I guess I would think they were made after the war with the giants, because I really like the theory that like Ra, like the Blackstone civilization, was an alliance of the fire giants and the astrologers. Um, and so like, and at that point, so in my mind that would be like because the war with the giants, genocided the giants. So if the giants were helping to build stone structures everywhere, then they weren't genocided yet. And the bridges leading to the divine towers, I think, are newer than the divine towers, and they are newer than the Blackstone structures. So yeah, I want to say that I would say those bridges and those statues were put there after the war with the giants. That's
Okay,
where I'd place that.
that's fine. I'm just going to ask you some follow-up questions. So, do you think that the golems, like the one we can find in the Rao ruins, are of the Rao civilization's origin? And do you think they were repurposed? Because we definitely see a ton of the golems around all of the divine tower bridges. So do you think that was done intentionally, or do you think that the Rao could have potentially created the divine tower bridges as well because the golems are there, or do you just not agree with any of that at all?
Oh, good question. I don't know if you're familiar with the Nameless Singer,
A little bit,
um,
yes.
uh, and as well Scum Mage Infa. They've both covered the raw ruins and these Blackstone golems and stuff, and like I'm totally on board with their takes, which is that yeah, the golems were built by this Blackstone civilization that built all of those Blackstone ruins, which I think is the raw civilization, and the raw civilization was an alliance. Like I hope I'm not misquoting their lore, but this is how I remember it anyway. That the raw civilization was like an alliance between the fire giants and the astrologers, and they built these like incredible Blackstone structures, including the golems. And I think the golems behave very robot-like and have been repurposed throughout time. So I don't see it there's one guarding an entrance to the internal cities. They guard the lift to Liurnia. They guard the entrance to Lanedale. They're found around the Divine Towers. Like I don't see like a consistent motivation or faction of them. I feel like they're just tools that
I definitely agree
whoever.
with you to an extent. It does seem like they are certainly repurposed to be sentries because we also have a random one like outside Castle Morn. However, the one thing that does stand out to me about the golems in general is just how many corpses or whatever you want to call them, broken automaton versions of them we have around the divine towers and their bridges specifically, as well as how many we kind of have in the Rao adjacent like ravine. I don't remember what that's called in the DLC. So I was just wondering if you thought there could be more of a connection between Rao and the Divine Towers or not, or if you were still adamant that you think the Divine Towers were built later. And I
Oh
don't know
no.
how. Okay, go
I
for it.
think the so okay, so the way I understood it, like I may be misquoting the Nameless Singers video here. Um, but at least the way I remember it and what I like is that the Divine Towers would have been built by giants, probably fire giants, and they had like this culture about serpents, some because they have all of these like weird toothy serpent sculptures and
You could go ahead and call
stuff.
them Frampton Koth.
Yeah, okay, yeah. That like Frampton Koth are there on the Giant's Forge. But yeah, so I think they built the Divine Towers out of like stone. And that was like a distinct giant culture thing, the Divine Towers. And the astrologers, were making human-sized structures that we find ruins of, like in the Stargazer's ruins and stuff. And then they formed then they allied with each other, and together they made Blackstone stuff. So like I think the Divine Towers are older than the Blackstone structures.
Okay,
And I think the Blackstone structures are very old.
fair
And
enough.
yeah.
And so then you think all of the embellishments on the Divine Bridges came afterward.
Yeah, like I see that as like human built stuff to because they're like these divine towers are still significant somehow. Let's build roads that are convenient for humans and I don't know, repurpose these like automaton golems to defend them and yeah, like I see those as human built after the giants were gone.
I think I would have to agree with that assessment as well to a degree because of how much Erdtree iconography is on the Divine Tower Bridge stuff. And so if the Erdtree was allegedly only begun after the war against the giants, then the fact that the towers would have Erdtree iconography should imply that those came later. Not like the actual towers themselves, but the bridge statues and whatnot. And so you think the Radagon iconography most likely was added after the war against the giants, if I'm following correctly.
Yeah, because I think during the war with the giants, like that would have been in my head canon, during the war with the giants would have been like Radagon's rise in notoriety or whatever. But I imagine everyone's busy killing giants, not building statues. So it would be after the war with the giants that they build statues to commemorate the heroes of that war. And
And
then
so,
later, Radagon was like, "Ooh, I don't want this much attention. Let's pretend Godfrey did it."
yeah, I was going to ask
Radagon
something
slash
along those
Luca.
lines. Yeah, so I was going to say, so Radagon rose to prominence in the war against the giants, but most of the credit went to Godfrey for some reason, and history was rewritten so that way Muriel would say, like, why did a mere champion become Elden Lord later in Radagon? And a lot of people just took
Exactly.
Radagon's legacy as Godfrey's essentially. So he's okay, I got it. So Radagon is the chosen undead. Godfrey is Artorias. Got it.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a great. I hadn't thought of that, but that's a great way to describe it. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah, exactly. Like and getting back to like my thing about repeating themes or Elden Ring being a retelling of Dark Souls. I think that Velka's influence in Loredron was also similarly like she had a huge impact. Like she was a big major player, and then she has also been scrubbed from history in a similar way. And I think like Velka has been scrubbing herself from history. Like I don't know exactly what the motivation is, but I think Velka doesn't like she wants Gwyn to get credit for what's going on, and she wants to operate like uh behind the scenes. And so, you know, if you're like me and you're already sold on that theory, that take, then it's like very intuitive to think like, oh yeah, Radagon was a big deal, and then he scrubbed himself from history and gave credit to Godfrey instead. Um, yeah, it just anyway,
So
that's what I think.
I do have some other questions about like the so-called Radagon statues, with
Mhm.
some of them being outside of the fortified manor. Would you then associate the fortified manor more with Radagon than Godfrey? Would be a big question for me.
Oh yeah, I mean, ooh, you'd think this is something I would have thought about a lot more because the fortified manor said, I feel like I was really focused on the fortified matter manor earlier in my like lore hunting, and um I haven't revisited thoroughly enough since I don't know, come up with this whole Velka Radagon analogy timeline stuff. But um I'm trying to excuse myself for not having an answer ready for that because it seems like an obvious question. But there are what I'm claiming to be Radagon the saint statues in the fortified manor, both in the Erd Tree version, and the real life version. Um, and yeah, like this could have been. Oh, actually, you know what? Yeah, because I think so the Sun Realm, which is mentioned in like one shield, that's like kind of scrubbed from uh the lands between's history. Um, the uh the there's lots of like sun related iconography in the manors, like the things that have this kind of castle architecture, like Castle Morn, Fort Faroth, um the
Castle Soul.
this Castle Soul, thank you. That should have been the first one. There's a lot of sun iconography in them, and fun fact: almost all of them are aligned with the sunrise. If I I've got a Photoshop file where I traced the direction of the where the sun rises at different places because your latitude, that's north to south, right? Uh,
No, that'd be longitude. Think of it latitude as like a ladder, so you climb up it, so
uh,
that's parallel to each other.
okay. Well, but yeah, that is the right one then. So
No,
like the further
longitude is
north
north
you
and
are.
south, latitude is east and west.
Okay. Okay. Well, the further south you are in the lands between, like the sun rises like more to the north, and the further north you go, the more it rises. Like the sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Yeah, the more it um rises towards the east, and these castles, these structures are like consistently like they'll have a doorway perfectly aligned with the sunrise. Like um consistently, no matter what their position is on the map. If you go to the sunrise, you'll see your shadow points like directly into the doorway.
That's
And
interesting. That's a pretty cool observation.
So I see these as like remnants of this sun realm, these castles, which the fortified manor would be a part of, and and yeah. So and I oh yeah. So following the Velka is a new version of, or Radagon is a new version of Velka, thinking like this sun realm, like Radagon would have been a prominent figure, if not like the ruler of the sun realm. And then at some point they did something naughty, like the four kings fell to the dark kind of thing. And then Radagon / America were like obliterated them
Oh
for
man, you just
whichever
opened
reason.
so many cans of worms. Before going
Right,
into the
right.
can of worm territory, there was something you'd mentioned in passing that I wanted to get a little bit of a clarification on. So you
Mhm.
said like the real version of Radagon and like the Urgi version. I'm curious if you would consider this statue that I've got on screen now to be Radagon, and is that what you meant by the Urgi Radagon, or were you talking about something
Oh,
different?
I meant the Erdtree version of the fortified manor, like the round table hold versus the fortified manor. That's what I meant. I actually don't
I mean, there's a
like.
bunch of these statues in the Round Table Hold as well, and in Stormvale. So hold on, I will. Do I not have the Round Table Hold? I probably just don't have it labeled for this specifically. But you have this version in Stormvale, and this is what you can get kind of in the Round Table Hold as well.
Yeah, I don't have a good explanation for these guys.
Okay, I was
Uh,
just curious about
uh,
what you said. So you said Radagon statues
yeah,
in the Round Table Hold, and you're not referring to these ones, just the ones we were talking about before, the Saint statues,
yeah,
essentially.
you know where you fight Mad Tongue Invader
Alberic?
guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of these hooded statues down there. But both
I've
in
definitely got a screenshot of something along those lines.
the fortified manor and in the round table hold.
Hold on. It's the wrong floor. Round.
Yeah, and this is another example of getting
Okay.
high on my own supply.
Here we go.
I've thought, yeah, exactly. Those are the ones I was talking about. It's been my headcanon that Velka is the one who flooded New Londo for so long that like I sometimes forget that that is not at all what the general consensus of the lore community is. But like for a decade I've been convinced this is the case. So you'll have to forgive me if I talk about it like it's fact when it's not.
No, I will never forgive. All right, so that's all well and good. Did you come to a consensus on what your thoughts were about this still representing Radagon and whether or not the Round Table Hold is more affiliated with Radagon than Godfrey, or
Oh yeah, like yeah, I still like that. That's my favorite explanation for these statues. That is still firmly my headcanon. But like I don't I can't blame anybody for disagreeing. I don't have any explicit like there's no game text that's like this guy definitely is or is not Radigan. So, any interpretation is like if like tarnished archaeologist, he's a saint of an era. Like he represents like a layer of archaeology. Like I think that's totally fair. Like that was my favorite explanation until I saw Kite Tail's video where she was like, I think this is Radigan, and I was like, holy shit, now I do too. Or excuse my language, sorry.
you've already had a
Um,
couple slip ups, Mr.
oh
Professional?
really?
Yeah,
Oh no,
it's
I
fine.
apologize. It's early.
Yeah,
My filter is down.
it's all good. Don't worry. So yeah, I was just curious about this stuff because I typically associate the fortified manor more with like Sarash and Godfrey than Radagon specifically. So I was wondering if that,
Mm.
despite all that, you still felt the same way. Now, going back to the can of worms you opened a moment ago with the Sun Realm stuff, not to put you too much on the spot, but I have two quick questions that I want you to answer. The second one will not be quick. The first question is, you had theorized or posited that Radagon could have been the Lord of the Sun Realm. I'll leave that one alone for now, but my biggest question following that up would be, uh, whom do you perceive to have been like the Lord of the Sun Realm, and where do you think it was? Do you think it was Fair Mizulan aligned, or something greater or lesser? And tie that back into like the whole Radagon equation, I suppose.
Uh, yeah. So I think the Sun Realm definitely has something to do with Fair Missoula because in Castle Sol where you fight um Nile, the guy with the flag,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and the lightning leg. Um, there's this big geometric pattern that I think represents the sun, or a flower, and uh, I think flowers more or less represent the sun in Elden Ring. Which I don't know. I'm just gonna leave that unjustified for the sake of getting through stuff. Sorry for um
Gotcha, fam.
saying random stuff. But yeah, exactly. So this thing you can find in Farum Azula.
Gotcha, fam.
So yeah, and like um the sun never sets in Farum Azula. It's perpetually out. And yeah, and you see a bunch of banished knights in Farum Azula, and the banished knights are always hanging out in these castle soul like castles. Um and yeah, although one thing I find pretty interesting is all of these like kind of sun, what I think are sun symbols in Farum Azula, are like in one section of the ruins. And there's like a what I would what I would call like the human section of Farum Azula, and then there's like what I think is the older, like more beastie slash dragony parts of Farum Azula. And I didn't notice it for a long time because like the different sections of Farum Azula are all mushed together and broken, but it's pretty segmented. The sun symbology only appears in the chunks of Farum Azula that have like these statues of the Virgin, the Mary with the baby with the ball,
Yes.
and the Charlemagne statue. So those like human statues, those are the section, like you'll find those statues in the same places you find this like sun symbology. And then there are places of Farum Azula where that's missing, and you mostly see like beastmen embedded into the walls and stuff. And no human statues. And in those sections, you do not find these like sun symbols. So yeah, but it's hard to notice that because in the actual like level design, these two sections of Farum Azula are mushed together. So when you're playing, it's like you're in the same area. You know, you take over a step of some rubble, and you've gone from like the human area um to the dragon area, I guess. And it feels like it's connected, but if I don't know, if you look at it for as much as I have, um it's it's like pretty separated. There's like the human sun area and the dragon area. I don't know. And so my take is I think the sun realm culture originated in Farum Azula and then was brought to the lands between. Like that's my headcanon.
All right. So,
So
how
I
do you
think,
feel about Placiduous Axe and its relationship to the Sun Realm, or yeah, just in general?
oh, do you want to hear my conclusion that I work backwards from? That like I really want to justify and find evidence for?
I hate the
Or do
approach,
you
but go for it.
yeah. Or do you want to hear like yeah, I don't know. Okay, so spoilers because this is stuff that I'm hoping to work up to in videos that I haven't made after months of procrastinating. Um, but going off this idea that that Elden Ring is a retelling of Dark Souls and there's parallel characters. I think basically Placiduous is Seath. Um, I think that's why dragons have lightning powers in Elden Ring because the Lord of Sunlight um, gave Placiduous lightning powers. Um, and he is the Seath like stand-in. Um, and that is why let's see, Placiduous is referred to as a dragon lord, and then like it's only like they say or some people think that he was Elden Lord, um, because like I don't think Elden Lord was a thing. Like, um,
Oh, believe you me, I'm extremely familiar with the fact that his description is written as hearsay.
yeah, you said that comes up in the Japanese stuff a lot.
Oh yeah, and at least this one is explicitly hearsay in the English as well. I would have really hated to have to fight that uphill battle. It's already been enough of an uphill battle already.
But yeah, basically Seath was a duke in Dark Souls, and I think Placiduous was not Elden Lord, he was Dragon Lord, and yeah, like
So
his
this is a little bit irrelevant, but kind of relevant. How do you feel about Bale and his jealousy and potential betrayal against the dragons as a stand-in for Seath instead?
yeah. So yeah, I thought that too, but I like Placiduous more, and then that makes me think that like as a Seath stand-in, um because like Placiduous is kind of still in power, so to speak, even though he's like isolated in a storm behind. I don't know, maybe that's the wrong thing to say. um I've rationalized this to myself before, but I don't have notes, so please be patient while I try to retrace my logic. um like one, I think in Bale's case, it's like a history is written by the victor. Oh, I know. One of my favorite explanations for Bale is that like he was a shadow, like a baleful shadow created by like the two fingers, maybe.
Did you just say a baleful shadow?
Yes, yeah. The if you listen to Blythe's dialogue, he says Bale and Bale like he says like I would never be a bale upon Ronnie or something. And I think they seeded this language of like a baleful shadow and being a bale upon somebody. I think they seeded that in the base game. Like I think they had Bale made up in on the books before the DLC. Yeah, I yeah. I think like that in-game dialogue is like a reference, like somehow the in the cultural consciousness of Elden Ring, they're aware of like Bale being someone who like betrays or yeah, a nemesis or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to pull a little bit of a Radagon and regress the topic a bit, how do you feel about Radagon potentially then being the Lord of Placidus Axe if Radagon is allegedly the Lord of the Sun Realm? And then I would ask, why do we not see more iconography associated with Radagon in the Sun Realm, or even like Radagon in the Lands Between in general, if he was such a prominent figure.
Yeah, okay. Well, so one, I think Radagon is like Marika / Radagon have scrubbed themselves deliberately from history, and the Sun Realm specifically has been like obliterated from history. So I don't think it's weird to not that there's not that much stuff existing or remaining, because like there was like a deliberate effort to rewrite history for whatever reason. But I haven't. Yeah, I guess there's none of those hooded statues in Farum Azula.
And then to build
Wait.
off that, what do you think about the lady surrounded by the three wolves in Malekith's sanctum?
Oh,
And
yeah, good
and
one.
like if that has any relationship to Radagon specifically. You don't have to go into like what you think about her, but I'm just trying to, pick apart your Radagon ideas for now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So in my head canon, that room has to be old. Like I think that's older than Mikola, and I think that figure can only depict Marika or Mikola.
Wait, why Mikola?
Just because Mikola looks a lot like Marika, and he's forever young. So like,
But you
I
said it
don't
had
know.
to be
Like
old, right?
yeah, I'm saying like someone could make the case and people have made the case that depicts Mikola, and I like just going on what it looks like. I think it's a viable thing to say.
Well,
But
so
I think it
would you?
predates Mikola. Like I don't think it's Mikola. I
Okay,
think it must depict Marika.
okay,
But of the people it could depict, I think it could only depict Marika or Mikola. And I think it's Marika because I think it predates Mikola.
okay, fair enough. You don't think we could have a
Uh,
Filianor type situation?
uh, Billionor types, interesting.
Basically, just having
So
an unnamed goddess, whatever you want to call
oh,
her.
sitting on an egg in a DLC area,
Yeah.
unmentioned until. Yeah, but then I would have thought they would have mentioned this Filianor analog in the DLC.
Well, I
But we
mean,
just
it's not as though DS1 or DS2's DLCs made any reference to the Ringed City,
yeah, true. Uh,
and we
yeah.
didn't we
Oh
didn't hear
man,
anything about Mesmer. He's like the Elden Ring Filianor now.
yeah. Oh man, just a total like just to blow my credibility with you and my audience, but like uh in the Ringed City DLC, Filianor um looks just like what I had imagined Velka to look like before I had played the Ring City. I figured that she wore white moonlight looking robes, like Gwendolyn's moonlight set. I figured Velka probably wears white robes that look like that. Like you can't tell what color her clothes are from her statues because they're all colorless. Um, but yeah, I'm like, I bet she has white robes. She has black hair. Like this lady looks just like what I imagined Velka to look like. And then I think it was a VadiVidya video about like weird secret stuff about Dark Souls. I can't remember. I can't cite my source, but in like the Japanese game files, that NPC's like game file names is Gwyn's wife. And then of course, but like not that supersedes the actual in-game text that is very explicitly this is Gwyn's daughter.
Mm-hmm.
But like, yeah, one of my Looney Tunes is like that character was originally meant to be Gwyn's wife, who I think was Velka, and then at some point they're like they rewrote it by the time they shipped the game, but at some point while they were developing it, they were like, yeah, like we're gonna put Gwyn's wife Velka in the game, and so somebody named the file like Gwyn's wife, and then later they changed their minds,
Mm-hmm.
and anyway, I think whatever they change their minds to, whatever they release is authoritative. I don't think game files supersede that.
I
But
mean, Andre is canonically still the son of Gwyn, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, he must be. He can't be from Astora because he's the. Yeah. Anyway, like I feel like in my heart, I feel like this makes me right, and I've been right the whole time, and I'm totally vindicated, even even though the lore says something totally different.
So going back to the wolf girl in Fair Missoula's inner sanctum,
Mm.
the Radagon connection. How do you, does that mesh with your overall thoughts? Does that bring up some contradictions, or how you feeling about that?
Yeah, like I don't have a satisfying explanation. Um, like I do think that depicts America, and it is younger than any other depiction of America that I'm aware of. And she has the three wolves, and then we got that shield in the DLC that says like the wolf is the symbol of the Karian covenant or something like that.
Close enough, yeah.
Um, and um, and something to do with the moon. Um, and uh, yeah, so I don't have like a coherent explanation for it, but I have some. Here's another fun indefensible Dark Souls parallel. If you look at Artorias, the Wolf Knight who has the wolf ring, um, who has a pet wolf, Sif, uh, if you look at his armor, his helmet does not look like a wolf. I think it's really hard to make out what his helmet looks like, but it's beaked, and the best guess is I think it either looks like a raven or it looks like a gargoyle. Um, and anyway, when I saw that shield that says like the wolf is something about, oh, you have it right here, a symbol of the moon's pride. Um, and the Carian Royal Covenant. Um, like, uh, I lost my train of thought a bit, but um, like I feel like this is another case of like the themes are in line with things I thought about Dark Souls already, but I haven't puzzled it all out into a coherent like story or timeline. But yeah, I think this looks like if you look at it from the side, it looks beaked, and yeah, I think the gargoyles look pretty similar, and or a raven.
Do you
Um,
know about like the real life lore between wolves and ravens and stuff?
like I know that actually because of my Dark Souls obsession, I had Googled it, so I know that like they have a they in nature they sometimes have a symbiotic relationship where the ravens will lead wolves to potential prey, and then the wolves will deliberately like leave some scraps behind for the ravens to eat when they're finished eating. Is that what you're referring to,
Yeah,
or?
pretty much. So I was gonna say, like, if you think Artorias is kind of like a raven, then I could definitely see, wolf comparisons between the two, regardless.
Well, yeah, or what I think is, I think Artorias is a wolf, and then he has like this. All right, I'll just make a whole bunch of unsubstantiated claims because I think we're too short on time for me to try to explain why. But like I think Artorias is like the prototype Dark Moon blade, like like he was um like the original Blade of the Dark Moon, and I think okay, so I think Velka was a Dark Moon deity and Gwyn's queen, and that's why Gwendolyn is so the Lord of Sunlight and the Lady of the Dark Moon have a baby named Dark Sun Gwendolyn, who is a moonlight sorcerer. Um, and uh, I think Artorias, uh, like like he was a blade of the dark moon, and the blades of the dark moon were Velka's covenant, just like, and I think that the Warriors of Sunlight were Gwyn's covenant. Like, I don't think Gwyn had the way of white going. I think Gwyn was like a warrior king, warlord, who had a warrior covenant. And then Gwyn handed his covenant to his firstborn son when he left to link the flame. And when Velka left Lordran, she left her covenant, the Dark Moon Blades, in the charge of her son, Gwendolyn. And yeah, so that's why I think Artorias, the Wolf Knight, has this like this raven motif on his armor, and like yeah, and why he has this black braid in his helmet. Another like conspiracy theory out of left field thing. He has this black braid sticking out of his helmet, and after you kill him, Syrian is like praying or at mourning at his grave, and that black hair braid is like there on his gravestone. And we know that Velka has black hair, and that her black hair is a talisman for like casting miracles. Like she has an established history of giving people locks of her black hair. Anyway, so I, in my mind, already had this, I don't know, idea that the Wolf Knight actually served the Moon Queen. And then, so when I see this statue of a young, what I assume is a young Marika with 3 wolves, my head goes to like, this is somehow evidence of like a Moon Queen and the wolves that follow her. But I don't have it. I don't have like a good coherent explanation for this. Like I can't place it in the timeline and tell you what means what.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, so for me personally, because of like all this stuff not aligning super well with what I perceive to be like Radagon and his iconography or what we know of him, that's partially why I'm skeptical about tying so many things to him specifically, especially when we also have like item descriptions stating that Lord Godfrey fought the giants and the Stormlord. It doesn't really seem like his glory was faded because he was also called like the Lord of the Battlefield. So with so many people following that, and then Marika's spoken echoes telling Godfrey to put the giants to the sword, I am much more reluctant to call Godfrey fraud free. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely, that makes sense. Yeah, 100%. And also especially because like I am working backwards from my conclusion on a lot of these things, which isn't like the best scientific method. But you know, whatever. I'm not a scientist. I'm a video game nerd.
It's all good. Okay. So, with the little bit of time that we have before like the normal end of stream, I should have told you before stream, like if you ever need to take a break, you're more than welcome to. I have a be right back screen if you ever need to like hydrate or use the bathroom, anything like that. And right. So if you ever need that, just let me know, and then we could take a quick break if necessary. But with the remaining time that we do have, I did want to go into some more of those parallels that you found between Velka and Radagon. And if you wanted to talk about anything specific, you're more than welcome to. There's also, I did bring up the Velka and Gwyn parallels that I think could be relevant, but I don't think you see things quite the same way on that front. So anyway, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I guess I like I can acknowledge like Gwyn and Marika parallels, but like it's hard for me to champion them because it's like it goes against like my favorite fan theory. So but yeah, that's not to say it's wrong, but yeah, probably not what I'll focus on. But regarding like what I think, well, so one part in my video that I think did not land the way I had hoped. And I see it as like my failure as a storyteller is I have a whole section of my video where I go like, if Velka did this, then Radagon did that, and if Radagon did this, then Velka did that. And not only from your reaction, but from a number of comments on the video, like I missed the mark with what I was trying to accomplish in that part of the video. Because I think a lot of people took that as this was meant to be more evidence proving that Radagon is Velka, and I just like shoot off a bunch of ideas rapid fire, and I don't justify them at all, and move on to the next one. And in retrospect, I see that as poor execution on my part, because that section, what I intended for it to be was like almost like a brainstorm of like, here are some of the possibilities. Like if the developers are telling us through this, like placing this statue here deliberately, like if the message in the bottle here is that Radagon is a new version of Velka, then we have like a fixed point of reference where we could like infer details about one game's lore from the other game's lore. And then I was trying to like, here are some possibilities that this could mean. I was not trying to be like, because this and that happened in Dark Souls and Elden Ring, this makes my claim true.
So, for any who may not have been participating during that stream, are there any examples you'd like to provide, or like what your thought processes were putting some of those examples back to back, or anything like that?
Yeah, sure. Okay, like one of them that I think you actually paused the video and said, "What?" And I cannot blame your reaction at all, because it is a leap unless you are in my mind. I say if Velka flooded a city to contain the power of Life Drain, then Radagon flooded a city to contain the power of Life Drain. And like, so first of all, this is like, you have to like, for this to be a compelling argument, you would have to have already bought into my take that Velka was responsible for the flooding of New Londo, which many people understandably probably aren't. And then two, like the thing I showed in Elden Ring was like a staged thing of something I think happened in Elden Ring's past, but like is not like clearly explained in the game. And anyway, I think the piece was super confusing, and I thought it would be fun to try to elaborate how I got there. So
Yeah, go for it.
So the first thing where like my claim that I think Velka flooded New Londo, that's actually what my next video is about. So I hope to like be actually thorough with sticking completely to evidence in Dark Souls. Like I don't want to do any meta contextual, this happened in Elden Ring, so maybe this happened in Dark Souls. I'm wanting to make a pure Dark Souls lore video of a theory that I've had since long before I played Dark Souls, which is that Velka was behind the flooding of New Londo. And just for the sake of brevity, let's pretend I've convinced you enough to at least entertain this idea that she's responsible for that. And in Dark Souls, it's explicit. New Londo was flooded to contain the power of Life Drain, which is what these scary dudes called Dark Wraiths do, where they suck the humanity out of the. They do this drain animation that is similar to what the Life Drain move looks like in Elden Ring. And then in Elden Ring, in the DLC, there's could be nothing saying it isn't possible. Oh, sorry, I just saw a chat message and the okay. So
Life
in
Drain and Radagon.
right. So in the DLC, there's this like flooded the temple quarter of the Shadow Keep that's flooded, and then you pull a lever that like releases the floodwaters, and the cutscene looks extremely similar to Dark Souls when you release the floodgates in New Londo. Like I have edited like a side by side comparison. They're deliberately like it is definitely like a homage to the previous game. Um, and then in that temple, you find this like Mesmer Fire Knight priest guy who summons these like burning zombies that attack you. And like that guy's armor, I don't have the descriptions on me, but like that guy armor, like it explicitly says he's one of Mesmer's guys, and the mask on it looks just like the mask on the Thorn set, the Briar set, what Elimer of the Briar wears. So that creepy guy.
Helm of Wago, Elder among the Fire Knights. 2 warped death masks stacked on top one another. Gnawed at by loneliness, the old man turned his attention to the spirituality of Mesmer's flame, using it in a rite of resurrection. Yet the soulless bodies he brought to life were no comfort to poor Wago.
Yeah. So the point being, like, this guy definitely has something to do with Mesmer, and he's in this like temple that was he's under the floodwaters, just like you find the Dark Wraiths in Dark Souls. Like he's under the floodwaters that where they put a cutscene that looks just like the Dark Souls 1 cutscene. And that guy's helmet, the masks on his helmet that the description calls attention to, the
Death mask helmet.
2 warp death masks stacked on top of each other. If you look at Elmer of the Briar, that creepy guy, the bell-bearing hunter who has the telekinetic sword, he has like his helmet has one of those masks. It looks the same. And like I think that this is a tie-in of like this is explaining the origins of Elmer to some degree. Like I think Elmer is associated with this flooded temple, and Elmer picks you up with telekinesis and does this like okay, you find the life drain fist in Caelid near where you find the Aochad Regalia, which is the telekinetic short sword. Yeah, the icon, it's gonna be hard to make the case, but if you wiggle your camera around in game, they look quite a lot alike. These mask parts. Yeah. So in the Life Drain Fist has all of this these red particle effects. Like it's the same color as the as his telekinetic stuff here. So like what I'm getting at is Elmer's red telekinesis grabby power is I think they deliberately the same like as the life drain power, as Life Drain Fist. And so, and we know Elmer is guilty and was like scheduled for execution, or perhaps was scheduled for execution because he doesn't have a head underneath his helmet. And yeah, so what I'm I guess trying to get at is I think Elmer, and therefore this Aochade, I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yokade.
Yokade.
Yokade. It's yeah, it's like Irish Gaelic, so it's one of those words.
Well, so I basically I think all of that is related to the Sun Realm, and like this like Lifesteal Fist, the Aokade red telekinesis powers and stuff. And then I I think that stuff is associated with the Sun Realm that's been obliterated and like why he's guilty. And I think one of the like the ex an explanation for why it was obliterated was because they were doing things like life drain, which like is what the Dark Wraiths were doing in Dark Souls and got their city flooded. And then you have a guy who has the same mask and like kind of similar looking to Elimer, who's in a temple that was flooded in a very similar looking way. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, again, like I don't think I don't think this is like proof or evidence of any of my claims. But like I think this could be an example of where like we don't know much about Aokade. Yokade. Yeah, forgive me. I am not good at pronouncing things.
That's fine.
Yeah, like we like it's the Elden Ring is really sparse on details about it and what happened to it.
Just to summarize, if I'm following correctly, correct me if I'm wrong. You think Radagon flooded the Shadow Keep because it had Wago down there, and he has a type of life drain-esque power because of being imbued with Mesmer's flame, or am I missing something there?
Well, so I think that's like a fair recap of the mess that I just tried to explain. The way I see it is Radagon flooded the Temple District because the whatever the people in the Temple District were up to, like what they were worshiping, the culture or whatever, was were doing naughty things like life drain, and maybe like resurrecting fire zombies was also among like the naughty things. Like I don't think he flooded the whole Temple District just to get Wago. I think it was flooded to stamp out like this culture of people doing naughty things, like whatever this Yokade telekinesis power, life drain power stuff is.
So
And,
wait,
yeah.
why do you think the people in there were experimenting with life drain / Yokade type abilities? If it was all like the only indication of that we get is from the Fire Knight with Wigo.
Right. So like and this gets to the point of where I'm trying, like the broader point I'm trying to make is like perhaps we can fill in holes in Elden Ring story with Dark Souls stuff, because the only thread I have in Elden Ring is that their mask looks similar, which is like not much.
So this actually brings back to one of the points that I wanted to raise a little bit earlier, but I wanted you to make some of your cases here. So for me personally, I think if Radagon and Velka or any character and another character were to have parallels, then I think they should have set parallels, and that their actions should mirror each other rather than using one character's actions to justify another character's actions off screen. I realize that might be a little bit wordy, but so for example, trying to use like let me think about a game that we could parallel that's not particularly related to Radagon and Velka right now. So if Siegmeyer and Alexander are similar, then because Siegmeyer goes to Lost Izalith, I don't necessarily think that means Alexander has to go to the equivalent of Lost Izalith in Elden Ring, or that he has to have done so off screen. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so, like,
I
what I was saying before earlier with seeing like a bit of a similarity between Marika and Gwyn, just to give an alternate example of parallels, I think paralleling each other directly would be that if Gwyn prolonged his age, I see a similar parallel in how I think Marika decided to prolong her age, and I'd be more comfortable like with those types of comparisons rather than
mm,
saying um because Gwyn banished the Nameless King, Marika had to have banished Mesmer for like the exact same reason.
mm. Uh, yeah, I see your points, and I definitely think it's fair, and I think the parallels are strong too, because like we fight Gwyn as a last boss, like he's not dead, but he's like sacrificed himself, like entombed, undying inside the kiln of the first flame forever. And like that's exactly how we find Marika, like entombed forever inside the Erd tree,
Oh, do you
um,
think that the first
in an
flame or
unpleasant
the kiln of the first flame was in a tree as well? Just this isn't relevant. I'm just
I,
curious.
I was just looking at that area yesterday, with free cam, because I was like, what is the kiln of the first flame in Dark Souls anyway? And I was like, wow, this whole thing is built on top of a tree, like
Yep.
of a big tree stump, or like within a tree stump. Not too much unlike how there's like man-made structures within the bark of the Erd tree when you walk
hmm
into it. Yeah, anyway, j- like literally yesterday I was like, this is giving me like more Erd tree vibes than I expected to find here. Um, Especially because I've been of the mind that the kiln of the first flame analog in Elden Ring is the fire giant's forge. I have not thought it was the Erd tree. Um, but anyway, I do think they look really similar as of yesterday, the Erd tree and the kiln of the first flame. What do you think about the kiln of the first flame being a tree or not?
Well, I could definitely see how in the intro cutscene that the four so-called lords before they were lords, the Hollow Boys, finding their flames, that it could be within a hollow tree or a tree hollow. So I really don't have too strong of opinions about that, but I guess if there is more tree adjacent imagery, that could also tie in pretty well with how the Bed of Chaos is somewhat plant like and how
Mm.
the Witch of Izalith was trying to reconstruct a version of the first flame for her own, I guess. So I think there's a lot of pretty neat imagery that goes along with that.
Um, but to try to briefly recap that long rambly thing I where I tried to connect like life drain to the flooded temple district. Um, like my goal in that section, and even right now, is not to convince anybody like this is definitely the order of events in Elden Ring. It was meant to be more of like, well, we know why New Londo was flooded in Dark Souls, so maybe this can indicate like why the Temple District was flooded in Elden Ring, and like maybe it also had something to do with life drain. And then when you look at Elimer, who does the life drain move, he happens to have a mask that's similar to like the one guy who's in the flooded temple. So you know, what I wanted to communicate in the video was like maybe this can point us in places to like dig and look for things. I
So
wasn't trying to be like this definitely happened, and here's strong evidence supporting it. Like it's flimsy is what I'm trying to say, and I acknowledge that.
that's fine. I think because of like the inherent nature of the pedant, whatever. Um, I am more interested in like attacking the whole idea of Elimer being tied to Wigo and the Shadow Keep Because if Wego has those types of powers and he's like a follower of Mesmer, then I think your ultimate argument would essentially be tying the Life Drain esque Yokade type stuff with Mesmer more specifically than you might be thinking. Because I see that as kind of being divorced from what's going on in the actual Shadowkeep village section itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I haven't painted like a coherent picture that I'm happy with yet. But that is basically the direction that I'm going in my, my mission here to work backwards from my conclusions. Because like people pointed out really early on that Mesmer's boss music is like a remix of Radagon's theme, and he like Mesmer has obvious like similarities to Radagon with the red hair and the I don't know. I guess that's the main thing. Um, but yeah, like I see Mesmer as the son of Radagon, and like yeah, yeah, I again I can't, I don't have a coherent picture painted to explain, but like that is the direction I'm thinking. Like Mesmer and Radigan had something to do with cultivating this culture that ended up doing stuff like life drain and resurrecting fire zombies and stuff. And then at some point they were like, "Oh, never mind. We need to put a stop to this." And they obliterated this culture.
But see, I would also disagree with that assessment because it's only Wago and that section of the Shadowkeep, which is only one very small portion of Mesmer's army. And we have like what, 3 or 4 Fire Knights within the Shadowkeep itself, and then the extra Conjurer that is like blocking off Rao. So I kind of just don't follow that train of thought either.
Well, okay, and then I'll fog it a bit more just for fun. Because like, why address your point when I can deflect and confuse? um, but a thing that I'm also intending to make like a short about or something that I think is just interesting. Uh, when you release the floodgates of the flooded temple district, or how do I want to reveal this for the maximum impact? You know the where you fight Midra in the manse.
Yes.
I have seen a number of lore videos say that like they burned all of Midra's books and stuff, that the what you call it's the Inquisitors or whatever they're called, were burning all of his books, because he was a heretic or whatever, a frenzy flame heretic. Um, and if you look closely, like that place has not been burned at all. Like that place was flooded. The books are all rotten and molded. That's why they're
Sorry,
like
are you
black.
talking about Midra's Manse right now, or the section in
Yeah.
the Shadowkeep that leads to it?
Right now I'm talking about Midra's Manse.
Okay.
It's lots of people have said that the Inquisitors were burning it. Probably because they like spit fire at you. I think, don't they? They have like a fire attack.
Yeah.
But
Do
like
they? I'm pretty sure they do. I have pretty good Inquisitor footage.
but all of Midra's Manse, there's tons of wood. Even in Midra's boss room, there's like dry straw on the floor.
Yeah, they definitely
Um,
breathe fire at some points. This is not it. Hold on
um,
1 second. There you go.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So, and I think that's why so many people have made the jump to like Midra's Manse was burned. But there's wooden tables, wooden chairs, there's paper books, and like basically all the paper books are black, but it's all black with mold, and there's even like a particle effect in the air that it just feels damp and moldy in that area. The place was destroyed with water damage, not with fire, is my point. And if you look at that whole valley of the the abyssal woods, it's clear that it's been flooded. Like this whole place. Yeah, exactly. Like, how could they have burned Midra's manse and there's just a bunch of dry straw lying around? Like, that wood is not burned. That wood has water damage.
Couldn't you also argue that the other way though? Because if this was ever flooded before, wouldn't the straw have kind of like disintegrated or not been dried out?
I don't know. Like, I couldn't testify as to what happens to straw
All right,
in a
let's get
flood.
our straw specialist on the stream.
Yeah, we'll have to consult somebody.
Jamie,
But
look
like
that
that
up
whole
for me.
but the whole valley of the abyssal woods is like indicates that the water levels were a lot higher and now it's drained out, and there are waterfalls there, and if you trace the waterfalls, they originate at that you one of the places you can get one of those stone swords, like there's like two of those fire golems right outside these. So you take the secret passage in the Shadow Keep, and then you like ride a coffin down a drainage thing to land in a coffin pile just outside the Shadow Keep. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just outside there's like ruins of something. I can't remember what they're ruins
Auntie.
of, but there's wow.
Auntie.
You were-
Unt.
you were
I
good to
call
go
it
with that.
auntie because it's funnier that way and easier to remember.
Okay, well, so you know the spot I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Basically, the in the cutscene when you release the floodgates and all of those floodwaters come out, like all of that water would drain down this way, and then this whole area where those ruins are built is like flooded, and this whole stream of water flows all the way down to the abyssal woods. I think the flooded section of the tower was like them turning, like they originally flooded the abyssal woods is what I'm trying to get at. And then they like turned it off, and or like flooding the temple district was a part of flooding the abyssal woods.
Wouldn't it have
Like
to be the
somehow
other way around though? Like they would need to essentially drain the woods because if they're damming it to flood it, then they would need to hold back the water to flood it later.
No, I mean like they flooded it, and then once they wanted to shut the water off, then they closed the floodgates, and then that dammed up the water and flooded the temple district.
But it wouldn't be flooded to begin with.
The temple district would not have been flooded to begin with, or
So okay, let's.
oh yeah, I see. Oh, okay, yeah, okay. So my imaginary justification that I'm just like in just like in Dark Souls, the way they flooded New Londo, they show you in the DLC. There's a spot in Darkroot Basin where there's like a lot of water that flowing in this big stream that becomes a waterfall that goes down into the Darkroot Basin. When you time travel back to Ulasil, this big fast stream where tons of water is moving in the present, it's just a tiny trickle of a stream that you can trace back to like a rock wall. And the storytelling is they must have like destroyed this rock wall to release a big body of water that, produced this giant stream, which created this big waterfall that flooded what would become where you fight Calamite is the Darkroot Basin where you fight the Hydra. Like you fight Calamite in the same spot as the Hydra. So like the environmental storytelling is they destroyed this natural dam or whatever, releasing a large body of water into the stream, which flooded Darkroot Basin, and somehow those floodwaters like presumably flooded the Valley of the Drakes and then overflowed into New Londo. Like that's how they flooded New Londo. And so I don't know what the source of it would be in Elden Ring, but I think like they would have basically tapped a big body of water that was untapped before. They would like release this big flood that would flood through the temple district and then flood the abyssal woods, and then they would close the floodgates that would leave the temple district still flooded, but stop flooding the abyssal woods.
The Shadow Keep has the old Iron Keep problem where it's essentially at the highest point in the land, so the fact that you could flood it with water doesn't make a lick of sense unless they are slowly pumping up a wellspring of water from somewhere, if it gets generated from the skidoo tree or something.
Well, I agree with you 100% on that. My only defense is the fluid dynamics of Elden Ring don't make there's unlimited water coming from high points without explanation.
And you also have coffins that float up on water.
Yeah, exactly. Like Farum Azula has streams of water, has waterfalls coming off the side of it. Like I don't know where their flowing water is coming from forever. The like that massive waterfall in Liurnia where the ruin-strewn precipice are like the water feeding into this massive waterfall is like shallow trickling streams in Altus Plateau. And anyway, they're pretty, I feel like they're pretty loose with their fluid dynamics throughout Elden Ring, not just in the Shadow Keep.
You could even say they're fluid with it, I understand.
Yeah. Oh.
All right.
Hey-o.
So we are over the normal, like, soft end of the stream. Just wanted to bring that to our attention. Are you fine with continuing for a little bit longer, or how are you feeling?
Oh, absolutely. I am having a blast.
All right. Glad to hear that.
I'll take as much of your time as you're willing to share.
All right. So going into some of the notes that I've been writing for the general conversation that we've had so far and the aspects of flooding the Shadow Keep, I want to push back again on the whole life drain angle and say that pretty much all that we can see of the Shadow Keep that's been flooded are the fact that there's 2 ulcerated tree spirits, which may or may not be entirely relevant to that area. So I'll just leave those guys alone for now. We have a bunch of crabs, but setting those guys aside, we also have, perhaps most importantly, the entrance to the Skibbity tree in the church that kind of leads into the sunflower fight. So do you think that that could have been a justification for flooding the lower section of the Shadow Keep to prevent others from entering the basin in which the Shadow Tree avatar exists, or the base of the Shadow Tree? Or do you think that the life drain type stuff with Wago is more important than that potentially?
No, I like, especially if I limit my scope to like actually Elden Ring and not like reaching for my beloved Dark Souls analogies.
And you could have said the Moonlight Greatsword, and that would have been perfect for your beloved.
Oh, right.
Always by your side.
Such a God, that was so cool. Or sorry, didn't mean to swear. Yeah, but I feel bad because over the years I've become much more of a PC gamer because like it's just too much of a hassle to go to where the TV is, and like I have family members to compete with the TV for, and I can't play Bloodborne on my computer, so it's like
or can you?
Oh yeah, I should really look into that because yeah. But I mean, I 100%ed, like, I feel like I have Bloodborne chops. Like, I was pretty into it, but in recent years I've neglected it because it's been inconvenient to go to my PlayStation 4.
If it makes you feel any better, I had a friend, the same one who showed me Demon Souls earlier, who pirated a movie that he already owned because he didn't feel like getting up and going to the shelf and putting it in the DVD player.
Epic. I mean, that's a good reason for emulation. I have emulated games that I own. I need to get an emulator for Demon Souls as well because I don't have a PS5 and I really like Demon Souls and I really want to play it again. um, but right. No, especially in like the environmental storytelling in Elden Ring, like I think the way I read that is they were trying to obscure whatever the origins of the tree religion. Um, like what would become the Erd Tree religion started as some sort of shadow tree, skibbity doo tree religion, and like for whatever reason they don't want people to know these origins, so they're like, yeah, let's make it impossible to go to where our religion got its footholds. If like that's how I interpret that area. Does
So
that make
then,
sense?
do you think this is just kind of more incompatible with the claims that you're making in the video? And you don't have to defend that claim to the death by any means. So I just wanted to like bring these thoughts to your mind if you weren't thinking of them and to begin with.
Oh, I mean, I think these are totally fair. I don't think they're necessarily incompatible. They don't necessarily support each other either. But like, and I think it's fair to say this is reaching. But like, the way I can reconcile it is I think these kind of naughty things like life drain and resurrecting fire zombies was part of this early version of the Erdtree religion. And at some point they were what I don't know what the catalytic event was, but at some point they were like, oh, we need to rewrite history and we need to like obliterate these naughty magics and we need to erase our association with it. um a side note, like this, I think will also be super controversial. But just to pile on, my take on the America statues and the DLC that are all decapitated. I think the common interpretation of that is like the people in the land of shadow feel abandoned and betrayed by America, and everybody's just kind of tired of her, and so they've all defaced her statues because they're everybody's bitter about America. And like I come to this conclusion because I've thought this about other headless statues in Souls games, but I think that this is about like changing history. Like I think the head on those statues is something that America doesn't want people to remember. Like either the head on those statues is a different head than America's, or like a different face. Um, like say she usurped some other queen's position, or it depicts America in a way that she does not want to be depicted. Like
And you're talking
at
about
one
in the DLC areas specifically, not just the base game, or both?
I'm talking about the DLC
Okay.
specifically because all of the America statues are like uniformly decapitated. Like they're not defaced in any other way. Like I would think that if everybody was like really grumpy and unhappy with America, like her statues would be knocked over and defaced and have like swear words carved into them and whatever. But they're all in like really good condition and all of them are missing their head. And I
So,
think like
how do
this
you feel
indicates like
about the
a
one
coordinated
in
effort.
Mesmer's room?
Hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. Like, um, it's like in pristine condition, but it doesn't have the head, like the most, what would presumably be the most recognizable feature. And the one in Mesmer's room, um, it does have a head. I don't
Yes,
know.
I have it on screen right now.
Um, like, okay, so if I'm following this logic, I would say that either this is a statue that like Mesmer kept protected from this like coordinated effort to remove all of the heads from all the statues, or that this is a depiction that America like was fine with. Like this, perhaps this statue was made after the other like headless ones, and this one has like the the politically approved version of America's head on it, and these ones all had the head that she does not want people to remember.
To be
That's
fair, Mesmer's one does have her cradling a baby, and the others are different. So,
but like I think it's very common for people to I've had this debate in Discord servers before, and I have gotten a lot of pushback on like I think America and Mesmer like had these statues decapitated like on purpose, not because people were like uniformly disgruntled with America throughout the Land of Shadow.
would you like to hear my take on them?
Oh, absolutely.
So, like you were saying, I think that they were decapitated in a planned fashion by both America and Mesmer, but perhaps for different reasons than you may be thinking.
Please elaborate.
So there is a little bit of text where Mesmer says to direct all thine ire and thy curses toward me and me alone. So I think Mesmer was trying to become the figurehead of America's crusade to prevent the ire from being directed at her specifically. And I think there's supposed to be an element of ritual purity that's supposed to be protected within divinity. And so I think Mesmer is acting as her scapegoat or effigy, so that way she doesn't get cursed directly by the Hornsent and whatnot. And I think once the other Shadowkeep soldiers realized that they were abandoned, that they were fine with defacing her statues as well. So Mesmer is trying to act as the figurehead of a rebellion, even though that rebellion is kind of being orchestrated ultimately by America. And I think the reason why Mesmer says, Mother, like, thou wouldst truly lordship sanction within one bereft of light, he's saying, like, bro, he doesn't have grace either. How is this dude going to be your lord when you don't accept me? So I think Mesmer is still under the impression that America is sanctioning everything he's doing, and if he's a good enough boy, he'll get to be in his mommy's good graces, pun intended. But what had happened was, once we defeat Mesmer, he comes to realize that it's not necessarily being bereft of grace that prevented him from being beloved by his mother the way that he'd like. And so that's when he directs his curse to her. And I think because the statue in his room is one that does have America's head, that it does show that he truly did not abandon her as she abandoned him until we defeat him. But of course, that is my interpretation of things.
Oh, like I'm totally on board with your interpretation. I mean, except for where I diverge about why specifically the statues were defaced, but like the Mesmer trying to take credit for things that America was responsible for. That's my reading as well. And like also this like undying devotion, like just this commitment to endlessly, timelessly sitting in this room, basically guarding the entrance to the divine gate forever. And he's just resigned to it because he's that devoted to America. That's my. I guess where I diverge is when he breaks his creepy eyeball and turns into a snake thing. I guess I see that less as abandoning America, but in more of a like a last resort. Like, oh, like he's committed to his cause to the very end, even if he has to like tap into his like naughty powers. He'll do it to such is his devotion to his mother and his cause.
But in a way, I would argue that breaking his eye of grace is in essence abandoning America because he can't serve America in a graceful state, pun intended. He has to resort to being the abyssal serpent again.
Oh man, I saw. Sorry for the random tangent, but I saw a Reddit post recently, and couldn't tell you who it was by. Um, but somebody somewhere said that their interpretation was that the land, like America didn't separate the land of shadow from the lands between, that was done like a really long time ago. And what it says in game is that America is the one who veiled the lands of shadow, and that the cutscene depicts her like going from the land of shadow using the divine gate as like a portal to go from the already previously separated land of shadow, stepping into the lands between, and then she veiled this entrance, this gateway to it. And I'm mostly just thinking out loud here, but if so I like to attribute thorny stuff to Radagon, and what seals the divine gate and the land of shadow side are these shadowy thorns that are propped up by the sealing tree that can only be burned by Mesmer's flame. So anyway, like I see Radagon's thorns sealing it, like if I'm following this, like the only doorway to go from the land of shadow to the lands between in this thought space would have been sealed by Radagon's thorns on the land of shadow side, and then I don't know, I guess veiled somehow in the lands between side. And sorry, I just thought that was an interesting. This is like a few days old thought that I had never considered before. I always assumed like Marika / Radagon separated the land of shadow from the lands between, and that's what the veiling of it meant, and the take that like it was already separated somehow, and she literally just veiled it, like she obscured the gateway between the two worlds is what she did. Like, that's an interesting idea.
For sure. All right, so I did want to go back to the Wago thing before I forgot. You said that you think Radagon would have flooded Wago down in the Shadowkeep, but I think Wago being flooded would have happened relatively late in the timeline, because it seems as though, for the most part, the actions of Mesmer's crusade happened essentially what I would have assumed after America and Radagon left the Shadow Realm, or they would have like conducted more after they left. So they might have kicked it off, but then anyway, the reason why I think they would have been flooded later would be because Mesmer's forces and Wago specifically were doing crusade type duties, and I don't know, it just seems strange to me that Radagon would have flooded it with Wago in there to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like, I like, okay, so the what I really think they tried to flood was the Abyssal Woods. Like, that's in my head canon, that was like the intended target of the flooding. And then the reason the Temple District is also flooded is to obscure the origins of what would become the Erdtree religion. So like, I guess the Wago thing isn't like the Wago connected to Yokai thing. Like, I don't get that from like playing the game. That is a result of like working backwards from my conclusion of going, if this happened in Dark Souls, then I think something similar may have happened in Elden Ring. Like, I guess what I'm acknowledging is like I agree with you that it's weak. Yeah,
Okay,
I
fair
don't know.
enough. I can appreciate the admission. I thought there was something else that I wanted to touch on, but I feel like I'm drawing a blank. So, would you like to just transition the topic to any other points in the video or Velka connections that you wanted to make that we just didn't get to yet? Or, yeah, let me know.
Um, like so most of the stuff that I wrote a couple notes for myself that I was hoping to mention during this time we got to naturally just with your questions. Um, so I don't have anything mm, outstanding to say. Like I really wanted to clarify that I don't think they are. It's a one character hopping from game to game. Uh,
Right,
that I
that's
think
true.
they're.
You did clarify that as well, which I definitely appreciated. So,
Um,
if you don't have anything else, I do have another question for you. But if you want to
hell
take a moment to think of anything, by all means, you're free to do so.
Oh no. I'm happy to for a question.
Okay, if Radagon is Velka, who is Smo?
Smo is let me make sure I get the names right. Yeah, Smo is Aldrich is Rykard.
Okay, I was gonna say
Or
Rykard because he eats people to become his family.
yeah, yeah, that's yeah, because Smo is cannibal and executioner, and Rykard was like an inquisitor or something. He was some sort of like
Just to share.
he did yeah, he did a lot of killing. I'm pretty sure. If the abductor versions are any indication. Um. Oh man. Yeah. Or I'll call attention to one thing. One thing that is missing from a lot of that we haven't like. I saw it on your bingo card, but it hasn't come up. Is
I haven't been
my
keeping up with it too much.
but none of this stuff has approached the Glomide Queen,
Well, now
which
you
is
just did. Are you just trying to get a bingo automatically? I feel like we've already gotten Rorschach style imagery. I did not bring up the Oswald eclipse thing. That was one thing that I did mean to bring up, but it just
oh
didn't come
yeah.
up supernaturally. So if you want to touch on that, that's fine, and then we could get a bingo.
Sure. The Velka symbol on his like sometime after Dark Souls 3 came out, the concept art book, the concept art of Velka's statue has the same symbol that's on Oswald's head. And at that with the moment I like somebody posted that on Reddit or something, as soon as I learned about that, I was like, what does this symbol mean? And of course Dark Souls 3 was out by then with the like eclipse sun in the sky, and then yeah, I've just been like it it says it represents like separation from earthly desires or something like quite vague, and I don't know, I was just like it's the eclipse. And on like a broad, like a very broad, mm, I think a lot of okay, the I'll just get to the point. Here's a big thing that I'm hoping my video series builds up to eventually. I'm just gonna jump straight to the end. Um, that these worlds that Miyazaki imagines, uh, I think they're about basically about the eclipse. Like the eclipse is like a symbol for life. I think I'm just gonna dump a bunch of bullshit or a bunch of shenanigans.
Too late.
So this is people will be able to pick this apart. But here's a take to chew on, if you want. So, in Dark Souls, I think the image what it gets at is like humanity, which is like dark, like humanity comes from the abyss, and humanity is like weighty and more physical in nature, and it's also the source of like strong human emotions like lust and love and um hate and stuff like is mentioned in item descriptions. I don't know if hate is, but like lust and love are. Um, and the soul is the source of all life and is like the source of intelligence. And so the way I interpret it is like the first flame is the source, and I think the soul item says like all souls come from the first flame or something.
Actually, it
So
does not
souls come.
say that directly.
Oh, okay.
I don't think
I
so. I'm
don't.
pretty. They might like hint at it a different way, but at least not quite the way you phrased it.
That's fair. I don't have it up, and this is yeah a quick go through. But
But I
anyway,
mean, it's the simplest inference, so I'm not gonna like really bust your balls too much about that.
but yeah. So my take is kind of like ethereal things, like enlightenment, like civilization and stuff, and also powers that come from light and dark souls are like lightning and fire and stuff are all intangible, like they're energy, and things that come from the dark are like more physical in nature. And so, and I think one of the things they're getting at is life is the combination of light and dark. It's the combination of soul and humanity. Like, if you just have humanity and no soul, then you're like a mindless, hollow uh, thing driven just by like hunger and strong emotions. And yeah, so life is like the combination of light and dark colliding, if you will. And then so then to extend the analogy, the moon would be like the physical thing, like representing dark, colliding with the sun, which would be like the source of soul stuff. Um, so therefore, like the eclipse, where the sun hits or the moon hits the sun, that's kind of like where life comes from, the combining of light and dark. Um, and yeah, so that's why like it's in this context of a bunch of other, things I think about Dark Souls that I see the eclipse in Velka's mask, because it's like, well, that lines up conveniently with other things I think about Dark Souls. Yeah, and that's also what I think in Elden Ring. I know there's lots of takes on what the eclipse is, but I think I think the eclipse is like the great fracture when like Hayeta says like life began when the one great was like fractured. I think the one great was fractured when the moon ran into it, and
What do you
that
mean by
fracture.
like ran into it? Do you mean just like eclipsed the sun, or do you literally mean the moon crashed into the one great?
Yeah, like yeah. I think it like I don't think it's like according to like real life physics where like if a moon crashed into the sun like it would be incinerated, but like in kind of fantasy metaphysics
Well, to be
like
fair,
there was.
Estelle is a malformed star, just as Metter is a star, and the Elden Beast. So, just asking to make sure I'm on the same page as you.
Yeah. So yeah, like so I have kind of two takes on the moon in Elden Ring, and one is that like yeah, I think that the moon colliding with the sun is where kind of life was born. And I think the way that like Renala the full moon queen, the way that the Carians like worship the sun or worship, sorry, the moon, I think that that is like a workaround because the sun became like the sun was like the primary symbol, and then it was obliterated and replaced with the Erd tree. Like it was the sun realm, and people were obsessed with the sun, and then the sun realm was wiped out, and now everybody worships the Erd tree. And I think that the Carians turned to worshiping the moon because the moon reflects like the moon now in the
Well,
sky reflects the sun's light.
how do you feel about the stars and the fate in the stars in connection to all of this?
Oh yeah, that stuff. confuses me. Like, I
Because I would bring up I think it's called Stargazer Heirloom in English, that depicts Renala, and it says she followed the stars every step of her journey, and then she came to encounter the moon, and that's kind of what changed her. So I don't know if I would agree with the whole sun assessment with the Karian specifically.
yeah, and that's fair. But like I guess my counter would be like this could be why she was so excited about the moon. Is it's like a workaround for studying or worshiping the greatest star. So like not to compare it to real like different from real life physics where our sun is not that special. There's bigger and better stars in the universe. But I think in like the Elden Ring universe, the sun is meant to be like the original star, the source of all stars. And in this original collision, that's where all other stars are born from. Like the primordial moon crashed into the primordial sun, and that is what's everything else is like shards from this initial. I don't know. I'm way out in you know, make believe like fan fiction land. I'm in fan fiction land now.
Okay.
Is what I'm saying. um, but you know, sometimes it's fun to write your own fan fiction. That's all. But yeah, feel free to disagree and or poke holes in that.
I don't think there's anything I necessarily want to directly comment on with that already. I feel like the star comment is pretty good enough for me right now. If anything, we might be able to turn to our friend Ymir and say that the moon is merely the closest celestial body, and that might be why Renala looks up to it as a means of getting closer to the sun, perhaps, or something
Oh,
along
yeah.
those lines. But it would also be curious for me to learn that if the moons are merely meant to reflect the sun's light, then what the significance of the black moon of the Nox and Noxtella would be, and of course the so-called twin moons of Rolana herself.
Yeah, the twin moons of Renala really throw me off. Like, of things I'm bitter about, it's Renala. Like, I want
Rolana.
whatever. What did I call her? Renala?
Yeah, you
I,
said
I
Renala.
okay. Relana is like I was so excited when I saw trailers about her and when I like fought against her because like ooh, she has the potential to slot so well into my headcanon. But all of the in-game text about her is like it's extra. It's like it's just new stuff. It's not stuff that necessarily contradicts my headcanon, but it like also doesn't help my headcanon. It's just like for my headcanon, Relana is just like a new thing with a random twin moon thing and like I don't know.
Just doesn't connect to the base game.
Yeah, but oh, like a weird observation about her is the black lock of hair. Like one, she already quite resembles Artorias, just you know, armored warrior with wearing blue, um, with a black braid sticking out of their helmet. Um, but she also kind of resembles Syrian, with the like one like moon sword and one fire sword because yeah, like I feel like Syrian is similar to the dancer in Dark Souls 3. Like the dancer in Dark Souls 3 is kind of like a new version of the idea of Syrian with the like two different colored swords and um man, I'm really spinning off on a tangent here. The interesting observation is like they call attention to her black tuft of hair that her older sister gifted her, Renala. Um, and so I went and like double checked Renala's hair color in game, and Renala has brown hair. Um, like she's most definitely a brunette. And in the cutscene, it looks black, but that's because of the lighting. And if you turn on a free camera mod like I did, and you swing the camera around to the other side of her in that same cutscene, with different lighting, her hair is brunette. Yeah, or like right here, you can see it.
Hold on.
So,
I don't think I have like super good footage of her hair specifically.
well, even the spot you just had, you could see the roots of her hair are like a light brown color. Like they're definitely not black.
I think part of it is the lighting.
Um, and yeah, I've in various Discord servers, I've had people say like, yeah, it's the lighting, and I even extracted the texture to look at it, but unfortunately the texture is in grayscale, and that's a technique you do in game development when you want to be able to set the color of something in game. You can make the texture in grayscale, and then you can assign then the game engine can assign a color to it. So what that means is I can't open the texture and then look at the RGB value of it in there.
One thing that you might be able to do then would be to have a custom character stand next to her and see if the brownness matches the brownness of a tarnished or the blackness of a tarnished's hair as well.
Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, that's a really good idea. But anyway, the whole black tuft of hair being passed along thing really reminds me of how Artorias has a black tuft of hair that is left on his grave. Like Syrian is praying at his grave or mourning at his grave, and there's the black hair. And then Renala, who I don't think has black hair, is gifting black hair to her younger sister. And I think that indicates that, like, this is like some sort of family heirloom. Like, Renala inherited that hair. Like, somebody gave her a black tuft of hair, and then she gave it to her younger sister.
Well, there's also the idea that the Renala we face isn't really the real Renala to begin with, especially with the weird Ronnie intro in the second phase.
Yeah, that's true. Like she could have changed her appearance through rebirth, and then in the second phase she's an illusion, so she could be anything. Yeah, that's fair. Oh, I'm sorry, I have a really hard time resisting. Can I tell you another practically fan fiction theory?
Sure.
Like just based on like primate pattern recognition. Like there's a word for it, like apopepnia, where you see patterns where they don't necessarily exist.
Mm-hmm.
I can't think of the vocab word. Anyway, Ymir, Ymir has the grave to Yuri outside, who was taken when he was too young, and yeah, and Yuri is like critical of Renala and
Wait, what do you mean Yuri is critical of Renala?
Because he says like
you mean
the
Ymir?
moon is just... Who did I say?
Yuri.
Did I say Yuri? Yeah, sorry.
Like the stillbirth child is critical of Renala? Where's this lore?
My bad. Yeah. So, So my fanfic headcanon is Yuri is the child of Renala before she started having children with Radagon, and that is the juvenile scholar that she's like rebirthing a million copies of.
Isn't that directly contradicted by the finger creeper Ashes saying that Metter is the mother of all of them? Or no, Metter's thing saying that she's the mother of all Two Fingers and finger creepers?
Well, I don't think Yuri is a finger creeper. I think, yeah, Yuri, I said the right name. I don't think Yuri was a finger creeper. I think Yuri was a human child that so again, fan fiction here. like Ymir and Renala, let's say they had a child, and then that child died young or was stillborn or whatever, and then somehow the uh what's the word? The mourning, the tragedy of that, um, like drove them apart. Like Ymir left Renala,
Hmm.
and he's doing his own thing, and that's why he's like the moon is just the closest object. Like there's nothing special about the moon. It just happens to be the closest celestial body. Um, to me, that kind of sounds like I've abandoned Renala's way of thinking. Um, and yeah, and then that's why he's obsessed with becoming a mother, because like if he had a child with Renala who was like stillborn or whatever, and he's grief stricken about it, like maybe he does blame the mother, and maybe he is going like, oh well, I could if I was the mother, like I would have had a baby better or something. So now I'm obsessed with becoming a mother, so I don't screw it up like
Well, if
Renala
he
did or
stayed with
something.
Renala longer, this wouldn't really work logistically, but for the sake of the joke, it'll work. That he would have gotten access to that amber egg of rebirth, so he could have rebirthed Yuri anew.
Well, that's what I think Renala has been doing. That's what I think the juvenile scholars are like, yeah, rebirths of Yuri in this fan fiction. Um, like, you know, just make I was like a gravestone of Yuri, and then meanwhile Renala, like her juvenile scholars, she'll levitate them and turn them into gravestones that she then like shoots at you. I don't know.
It is weird to me that trolls have gravestones like in their chest cavities. There's also the fact
Yeah,
that the
trolls are
trolls had an
weird.
alliance with the Carians specifically, which is also interesting, and the fact that we have so many silver tier enemies which may have been rebirthed into different forms. So I don't know if Renala had a hand in any of that, but it's interesting to think about.
Just before we move on from Emir, could you pull up the item description for like glass, a scrap of glass, glass trash? I can't remember what it's.
The
Um,
glass,
yeah, base game. Um,
prism stone, or
no, glass shard.
a glass shard. Okay. Glass shard covered in dirt. Because it sparkles in the light, it might be mistaken for an object of value when seen from afar. It cannot produce light by itself, essentially worthless.
Yeah. So I think this either is referring to the Erd tree or the moon, or both. I originally thought it referred to the Erd tree, but then when Ymir was like, the moon is just happens to be the closest celestial body, it's not that big of a deal. It just screamed glass shard description to me. Because um, the Erd tree, like it does glow, but the day-night cycle is driven by the sun, not by the Erd tree. And like like all trees, like all plants, they get their energy from the sun. Like plants don't produce their own energy; they absorb energy from the sun. So why shouldn't the Erd tree be the same way? And I thought this was like
Well, it
making
is a
fun of the Erd tree.
metaphysical tree, and now we do have sunflowers facing the Erd tree and the Skidoo tree, respectively.
Mm, that's a good point. Um, so yeah, but then it could also mean the moon because the moon also does not produce its own light. Um, and yeah, anyway, this is one of my favorite like I like, I think there's like deep lore in this like trash item. I don't know, just something fun to think about.
I do think it's interesting that budding moss produces light when it's supposed to be produced in like pitch darkness or something along those lines.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that one.
So cave moss, budding cave moss, or is it crystal? Faintly luminescent moss that grows in dark caves, material used in crafting items, a fundamental ingredient for medicinal boluses. So yeah, the cave moss glows in dark caves. There does seem to be a minor theme of light being produced from darkness in Elden Ring that may or may not be distinct from silver that I still don't entirely understand myself. I was hoping we'd get more silver lore with the DLC, but we didn't. I was hoping we'd get more gold lore with the DLC, but very little was given, and most of it was just completely inconclusive or not relevant to the base game at all. Like I like how we get told that there's a golden crucible, but no elaboration as to what the heck that means, especially in relation to like the Hornsent warriors and stuff like that.
Yeah, they just introduced the concept of shadow.
Yeah,
They're like, yeah, we're not going to elaborate on gold and silver, but we will add shadow to the mix.
it's
Have
obviously
fun.
the shadow of the Erd Tree.
Yeah. Oh.
And it's really annoying that a lot of the contextual information about the DLC is contained in a cutscene or a story trailer that is not actually in the game itself.
To go really meta-contextual, just for the sake of saying something interesting, not to like infer a lot about Elden Ring. From interviews and stuff, one of Miyazaki's favorite books is Fever Dream by George R. R. Martin.
Right.
And so I read it to try to familiarize myself more with George R. R. Martin because Song of Ice and Fire is quite long for my slow reading speed. Let's see, I don't want to spoil the book because it's a really cool book, but in it there's some people in Fever Dream that have a myth about like the land they came from, which was an underground city by like an underground river that had cities made of black marble, and and like this whole race of people basically originated underground, and they have since like moved to the surface, and now they're kind of like stranded on the surface. They don't know how to get back to their like city of legend, or if it even ever existed. And anyway, the description of this like fabled black marble city of their legends just reminded me so much of the Nox cities. Like it's underground, and also the Nox cities seem like self-sufficient. Like they don't have a sun, but they have like silver plants that are growing. Like depending on how you interpret it, like they're either plants that got turned silver, or like they're just plants that are silver that are growing. And yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this exactly.
I think they cultivated a little bit of a pre-existing situation, to be fair, and I think they were trying to make the best out of a bad situation that they found themselves in after everything that happened with them and pissing off the Greater Will.
Yeah, I was leaning towards the like the Nox had always been underground, and that like the dynasty, the ancient dynasty ruins, I don't know what the Uul ruins, like I think they predate the Nox, but like the Nox built their stuff underground. It wasn't that they had their city and then the city got shoved underground, got buried. I was leaning in that direction, but then the Night Rain trailer came out, and they have like proper Nox city under like open sky, and but then like I don't know how to factor Night Rain in, but anyway, I'm always having to like rethink my headcanon explanation for the Nox, and yeah. Because like their upside down buildings look like they were built like they were intended to be upside down. It doesn't feel like it was a right side up building that got flipped.
I mean, if they definitely do look like that from a distance, but when you close in on them, they don't make sense to be flipped upside down. Like they're not right side up if you flip them upside down, which is like, yeah, duh. But no, like literally, if you try to flip them upside down, they don't actually work like to having doorways or proper windows like a one would expect. But there is also the way that we could invert the Karian study hall, so that might tie into the Nox. But if it does, it sucks that we never really got an elaboration of that or an extrapolation of that, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I don't know.
I think the Nox, like I think the astrologers predate the Nox. Like the Nox are an offshoot of the astrologers. Like I think the astrologers are among the most ancient of things we encounter in Elden Ring.
All right, sir.
Yeah.
Well, my dog is
Just to
flopping
throw
her
that out there.
face because she wants to get water and she's getting upset that I haven't gotten her water because we're going way over time for my normal stream schedules. So I would like to thank you again for joining me on the stream, as well as everybody for accommodating this interview with Elden dorK. If you'd like to say anything before we dip out, go ahead and say it.
Oh, yeah. I think I did just remember one last thing I wanted to explain. Just for silly lore, like self lore. My name Elden dorK. Mostly it was because I'm not clever. I don't know how to come up with a good name, and I needed a name for my channel. And the way I capitalized it that way is the way the Elden Ring title looks. The first letter and last letter are capitalized, so that's the goofy capitalization. And my real life name is Scott, and one of my favorite songs, or not, one of my favorite songs of a band called Real Big Fish. They have a song called Scott's a dork, and I listen to it a lot. At some point, it goes Scott's a dork, or anyway. So that's the lore behind my name, Elden dork, because I'm Scott. Scott's a dork, Elden dork.
I see. I like the real life lore behind that name. All right. Well, then,
And
thank you so much, Scott Elden dork. I appreciate your company for the night. Hopefully, this was your chance to defend yourself and you feel vindicated, or if not, hopefully, I've given you more food for thought. So,
absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your platform with me, and yeah, sharing my video with your audience. It's super cool, and this has been extremely fun. Thank you very much.
all right. Thank you once again. All right, folks. So that'll be it for tonight's stream. Thank you once again for joining us. Hopefully, we'll catch you on the next one at the normal time of 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, until then, take care, stay safe. Last Protagonist out.